Good evening. I'll try that again. Welcome to the City Council for April 15th, Tax Day. And I'm guessing that you're all here celebrating the fact that you got your taxes turned in today. Having said that, I want to note that we are starting this meeting at 6:12. And at this time, we'd like to ask that you participate with us as you see fit for the saying of the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. So this may not have to be said, but if you'll turn off all noisemakers that might interrupt this session, that would be much appreciated. And then also this evening, I'm happy to note that we do have live Spanish interpretation this evening. And tonight's meeting it is being provided by Claudia Mendoza. Thank you, Claudia. So headsets are available at the lobby entrance for anyone who would like to use this service. So with that, I'd like to request roll call, please.
Councilmember Ding.
Here.
Councilmember Gurney.
Here.
Councilmember Farrar-Rivas.
Here.
Vice Mayor Lowe. Here. Mayor Wellander.
Here.
Thank you.
Very good. We did have a closed session, but there is nothing to report on it this evening. And now I'm turning back up to the dais and seeking approval of our agenda. Do I have comments and or a motion?
I move to accept the agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
Very good. This being rather benign, I will say a verbal roll call, please. So all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Now we're going to be moving on to that point in the agenda where the public is given an opportunity to speak. Now this is the opportunity to speak on items that are not appearing on the agenda this evening. And we will be limiting the number of speakers to 10 on this first go around. If there is great interest and more than 10 wish to speak on items not on the agenda, there'll be a second opportunity at the end of the evening. And with that, I just want to remind people, because it has not been agendized, that we up here will not be able to comment, debate, or make any decision on the item that you're bringing forward. Not that we don't care, not that we don't think it's important, it's just has to be, by law, publicly noticed. So at this time, if you'd like to queue up at the podium in a reasonably straight line, and then also please identify yourself. You will have 2 minutes, and welcome.
Thank you, Mayor, council members. I'm Connie Schleyline. I am chair of the Cultural and Fine Arts Commission, but today I am speaking as a citizen of Sonoma, and I wanted to bring your attention to tomorrow's big celebration of our new treasure artist. I'm pretty excited about it, and a lot of people in our city are. If you don't know, Ada Limon is the U.S. Poet Laureate 22nd and the 24th Poet Laureate of the United States, and lives in our valley. And so we're very excited and hope a number of you can join. It's free. It's at the amphitheater. And there is a little RSVP requested, but it's not exactly required for you to attend. And I hope that you will see a public display of how much people really love public art in this community. So please come and enjoy, and council members, we'd love to introduce you, and staff as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Connie.
Hello, my name is Erin McTaggart. I'm here tonight to talk about the Wine Country Open Pétanque Tournament, similar to bocce, yet completely different. While my parents, Ken and Pat McTaggart, raised us kids on bocce, and actually helped found the Sonoma Bocce Group and Courts. I found Petanque 25 years ago, approximately, while walking through Depot Park. It's a similar game, but because of that encounter, I have played Petanque all over the United States and the Caribbean. I played for the U.S. women's team in France twice and in Turkey, and have friends from all over the world because of this crazy game. Tonight, I want to talk about the Wine Country Open, which is hosted by the Valley of the Moon Petanque Club. It's happening April 25th and 26th here at the Depot Courts. It is one of the largest international tournaments for petanque held in the U.S. We have people coming from Canada, Mexico, and many of the U.S. states to compete here in our beautiful valley. We have a variety of local businesses and patrons on and off the plaza that have helped to sponsor this tournament, and the VOMPC, our club, is sure that the visiting players will be staying in and enjoying Sonoma, helping our local economy. We truly wish that people come by and watch some of the games, especially the finals on Sunday there at the courts in Depot Park. We hope that people want to try the game. It's a very accessible, inclusive, and friendly sport, and the VOMPC welcomes new members, especially casual players, and people can be seen playing the game in the afternoons pretty much every day there, and we welcome people to come and watch. Thank you, and play.
Thank you, Aaron. All right, anyone else in this gathering? Seeing none, then I'm going to close public comment. And at this point, we are asking for a meeting dedication. I do believe my fellow council member would like to make a dedication.
Thank you, Mayor. I do have the one dedication. I would like to dedicate today's City Council meeting to our local resident, Gary McNanny. Gary McNanny passed away peacefully in his home in Sonoma, Wednesday, April 1st. Gary enlisted in United States Navy in 1969, and during his services sailed all over the world. In the Sonoma, he was working as a diesel mechanic throughout Marin and Sonoma County to support his family. His love of cars transcended work as collected and repaired the more than 30 different vehicles in his lifetime. Gary will be remembered for his service he provided to the Native Sons Palo 111 of Sonoma Valley. His service as commander of American Legion Jack London Post 489 from 2014 and 2024. His contributions to erection and the dedication of memorial and star status in our local veterans cemetery and the support he provided to fellow veterans, and his role as loving and devoted grandparent as well. This is a huge loss for our community. Gary will be greatly missed by all of us. Thank you, Mayor.
Very good, thank you. Now, with that in place, we will continue on, and I'm calling for our council members' reports and comments, please. Council member?
Sure, and I will try to make this quick because we have a big agenda ahead of us, a very exciting agenda. So on April 2nd, I'm on the board of Sonoma Clean Power and attended the Sonoma Clean Power board meeting. Just wanted to let everybody know different opportunities and rebates available. But there is you can, if you have an EV and have the ability to charge at home, they have an EV charging at home program, $100 for entry to enrolling into that. They have a do-it-yourself toolkit of what you can do and go into your house to make to reduce your electrical use, or talk to you about when to use your electricity. There's a free energy savings box that you can get. There's also cash rebates for home appliances if you're transitioning from gas to electricity. Then also there's a Sonoma Clean Power. They have a home thermostat upgrade for low-income individuals, people that are on the CARE or FARA program. You just need to have central heating in your house. There are also multiple e-bike opportunities, connecting biking to businesses, and also they're doing a pilot bike share program in Santa Rosa. So one of the things just to pay attention to and follow that we're really trying to do at Sonoma Clean Power is to support the development of geothermal in Sonoma. It's a lot cheaper for us to get our geothermal electricity from Sonoma County or the North Bay versus shipping it in from Nevada. And it also, developing that opportunity will be very good for the economy and bring strong jobs. The cost of creating a transmission pipeline from Nevada, it could be, which the state is considering, is over $1 billion, and the cost of doing the early stage exploration for geysers here in Sonoma is $40 million. So you just kind of compare the two and say, this is cheaper to do here versus getting, so it's a matter we get our electricity here versus shipping it in from another state. We keep the jobs here, we keep the revenue here. So the other thing I just want to say is that in 2025, the goal is to keep rates within 3% of PG&E, and they do the 3% because PG&E is constantly changing what their costs are. So the goal, of course, ideally is lower than PG&E, but within 3% of PG&E is really a very good percentage for comparable to other community electricity organizations. And then the other thing is that we will be able to return this year $37 billion to ratepayers and put in $39 billion in our rate stabilization fund. And that is there to put in that fund when we're seeing higher charges from PG&E. Remember, PG&E is our distributor. If you're with Sonoma Clean Power, Sonoma Clean Power is the one that goes out and purchases the electricity for you to utilize. So then on April 10th, I attended the North Bay Watershed Association Conference, which was very good. It was a full day, so I'm not going to go over everything in the conference. There was a lot of really exciting information. One of the things that I was very impressed by was there was a representative from Orange County. And in Orange County, they are kind of like, they talk about, they're at the end of line of all of the different water sources of the Colorado River. They're at the end of the line for their county. They're at the end of the line for the region. They're the last one to get water before it goes into Mexico. And one of the things that they really, really strongly encourage you, they have a great program. And they're really doing a lot of groundwater recharge and saving rainwater and storm water. And they feel that their success is by being very forward thinking and doing a significant amount of pre-planning. So it was really, it was a very good conference, and that's all I'll say about that. But yeah, it was great. Thank you.
Thank you, Mia. During last 2 weeks, I didn't attend any commissioner meeting, and instead, I was attending our community event on April the 12th. That is a Sunday morning time. It was raining, and afternoon I was attending Sonoma Valley Historic Society sponsored the Mountain Cemetery tour. Hired local actors are playing our historic figures in Sonoma, and ghosts with us with the life with Vallejo, Hirosfi, and Boyce, and Sebastiani as well. I very humble and thankful to be part of this show, and I was playing, and his name is John Boris. That is typical American name, but actually this is a Chinese labor. He works for Boris the family 80 years. And when he was in America here, maybe just 12 years old or 13, when he was that, and he already in the 90 years old. So finally, he was allowed to be buried in this cemetery. So he was the only, and then the Chinese laborers was buried here. And I'm honored to this event. And the good thing is I see more and more out in the local communities and also visitors join this cemetery tour and review out in the local wonderful history. Especially I saw a couple of the middle schools and the kids, they are very, very interested, fascinated for our local history. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. And on this side of the dais, John?
Let's see, on April 9th, I attended the Tourism Improvement District meeting, and they are financially sound, and they were actually looking and considering some grants for activities that will draw people to Sonoma, but their focus is primarily on off-season. However, these were events that have been here previously out in the vineyards, if you're familiar with that. It was up in Healdsburg last year. And they are trying to bring it back. And but apparently it's a busy time of the year in July, and so we're not sure how that's going to all pan out. I also attended the Sonoma Valley Library Advisory Board meeting, and nothing really to report there other than they still have 3 vacant seats, one of those being a youth member. And if you are at all interested in the library and everything that it does, and it's remarkable everything they do, please contact the manager there and express your interest, and I'm sure they can give you an introductory tour and let you get a little more information as to what's involved, and help support the community through library service. Thank you.
Very good.
Thank you, Mayor. I attended the Sonoma County Transportation Authority on Monday of this week, and I'd just like to, there's so much on the agenda, but I'll just highlight one thing, and that because you may have been reading about this, there's something called mascots. It's the Marin Sonoma Coordinated Transit Service Plan, so it's an acronym, mascots. And what they've done is worked on coordination. It's the 101 corridor, but we can get there eventually. But they've increased the SMART train to 48 trips a week, of 48 on the weekdays and 24 on the weekends, and with more frequent service early in the morning. Golden Gate Transit, primarily they're focusing on SMART to be a lot of that, but there is still express service from San Rafael and San Francisco. But they've added some new trips as well. But you can look this up at mascotsplan.org, MASCOTSPLAN.org. And it is also in Spanish, the Plan de Servicio de Tránsito Coordinado. Es traducido en español igual, en un folleto allí in the internet. So please look at it if you're using transportación pública, local transportation. So what I'm hoping to do, many of you have heard this, is work on getting the coordination from the Sonoma Plaza to SMART. It's not the easiest because there's too many stops. I see a lot of head nods. And I'm working on a day where we can get people together. We can go there and we can see how exciting it is to take the SMART train, because it really is a wonderful way to travel. But we really need to increase the ability for people in the valley to get to the Petaluma station, which is the closest one. So I'll be working on that. And in the meantime, please take a look at mascots. Thank you.
Very good. Let me start on back in March 31st. I had a chance to go to a train museum that's here locally at 8th Street East at Fremont Drive. It's real close to that huge building that at one time was going to be an Amazon warehouse. But there are some very passionate people that are restoring a steam engine number 2472, and they've already restored a Southern Pacific parlor car. And it's quite impressive right here in our backyard. And they have the aspirational goal of creating a couple of short trips, one going east to a bridge out there in the slough somewhere, and then one going to the west. And so, again, if you are a train buff, I would welcome you to check that out. On the 1st of April, I attended the 22nd birthday celebration of our local radio and television station, KSVY, where it was well attended and it was a good celebration. On the 2nd, I had a chance to do a personal tour of the Sonoma water system. And I think my takeaway from that is just we are blessed with an incredible water system source. And one of the facts that came out as I was looking down this tall pipe down to a water source below is that it is naturally filtered water that we get, albeit they do supplement it some, but it's, again, we are so fortunate. On the 9th of April, I had a chance to go to the Sonoma Botanical Garden, and they currently have started a new outdoor sculpture show called Spirit Guides, and it's being put on by some Mexican artists by the name of Jacobo and Maria Angeles. And it was quite inspiring. It's a beautiful setting, and I would encourage everyone to give thought about attending it. And then lastly, I had a chance to listen to a webinar this morning about our water supply. Once again, I sit on the Water Advisory Committee, and I'm encouraged that, we had our water total to date is 24 inches of our rain. We normally have approximately 32 inches. Our water supply at Lake Mendocino sounds like a bunch. It's 68,400 acre feet, and Lake Sonoma is 245,000 acre feet. The short and the long of it is that because of the rain shortage, it is considered a dry year. But having said that, the water department said that they are going to be able to meet all of the customer demands, and there'll be enough of a release that will allow for the normal recreational activities on the Russian River. So that is good. However, it is imperative on our part to be prudent users of water and to continue to be good stewards of this precious resource. And with that announcement, I will quit. So, now I will ask for comments from our city manager. Welcome.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. I'm honored to serve as the Sonoma interim city manager. Today is my 8th day. I should tell everyone my name's Christina Lilovich. I've experienced an incredibly warm welcome and a half, and I very much look forward to working with all of you and the community and the city's exceptional staff team. So I have a few announcements for you this evening. The Cultural and Fine Arts Commission selected Sonoma Valley High School senior Sienna Kelly to receive the 2026 Student Creative Artist Award for her excellence in film. The commission also selected Cassandra Castillo for a Merit Award, for their fine art submission. A formal announcement is forthcoming, and the council will present the check awards at a future city council meeting. Today is the last day to apply to be placed on the Alta Madrone Apartments waiting list. This is the affordable housing development managed by Satellite Affordable Housing Associates, located at 1269 Broadway, across from Traintown. Even though it's the last day, applications and more information are at sahahomes.org. Connie, think you already mentioned that the Treasure Arts reception honoring Ada Limon begins tomorrow at 5:30. Just to reiterate the details, at the Plaza Amphitheater, and Spanish interpretation will also be provided at the event. The Trashin Fashion Show this year is sold out. It's happening this Saturday. City Hall is among the local venues to display a Trashin fashion outfit. You can find that mannequin in front of City Hall, the upper right-hand window. It's going to be lit up shortly too, so that's really fun. It's also the last day to vote for your favorite Earth Day photo contest entry. This is a partnership with Sonoma Community Center, and the theme is the power of water. That's the night of water, Mayor. All entries will be installed in City Council chambers as part of the Chamber's rotating art exhibits. A few more. April 22nd from 6 to 8, there's a citywide historic resource workshop at the Vintage House. That sounds really interesting. I'm hoping to make that myself. The city's inaugural Earth Day at Trash Bash is on April 25th. There's a lot of things happening in Sonoma. From 11 to 4, in addition to the trash and fashion, there'll be exhibits, food, and hands-on opportunities to learn. There'll be a speaker series from 12 to 2, and you can get more information about the speakers on the city's website, sonomacity.org, 2026 Earth Day.
And that's at the community center.
Oh, thank you. Yes, at the community center. The 30th anniversary Kyle Petty charity ride across America is going to start in Sonoma this year. Kyle Petty is a former NASCAR driver and philanthropist from the renowned Petty racing family. It's very impressive. Since 1995, they've raised $23 million for Victory Junction and other children's charities. So their group of Harley-Davidson riders, motorcycles, will depart from the lodge at Sonoma on 6:30 a.m. on Friday, the 1st. And last but not least, the season's first Tuesday night market is coming up on May the 5th, and the next council meeting will be the 4th. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. And in terms of our city attorney is not present this evening, so we will then continue on.
I am present online.
Oh, he is online? Well, I wasn't sure. Please, if our city attorney has any comments to share, please.
No comments this evening, but it's good to do an audio check. Thank you.
Very good. Good. We hear you. All right, this evening we do have one presentation, and a very important presentation. And I have here in my hands a proclamation that I will read almost word for word. And it is the proclaiming April 2026 as Parkinson's Disease Awareness Month. And I have several people in the audience, I hope, here to receive this proclamation. I believe I would love to welcome Joy and Maury Bennett, Jeanette Perry, Kate, Jules, and Kai Naval when the time comes. I would like to at least read the proclamation and would love to have someone come forward and speak to a little bit about the Parkinson's support group. So with that, let me start by reading the proclamation. Whereas Parkinson's disease is caused by a combination of genetic and environmental factors and manifests in motor challenges such as tremors, rigidity, and slowness of movement, as well as non-motor symptoms including depression, sleep disorders, cognitive decline, and difficulty swallowing. And there's currently no cure for Parkinson's disease. And Parkinson's disease affects more than 1 million Americans and is the second most common neurodegenerative condition in the United States. Parkinson's disease costs the United States more than $58 billion annually, with nearly half borne by the federal government and the remainder by American families. And the prevalence of Parkinson's disease is expected to nearly double by 2037, increasing the burden on families, communities, and the nation. Whereas millions of caregivers, family members, and loved ones are deeply impacted by Parkinson's disease and work tirelessly to provide care and support. And whereas prevention efforts addressing environmental risk factors, early diagnosis, expanded education, and access to community-based support services are essential to improving quality of life and advancing progress toward a cure. And whereas lighting buildings, bridges, and other landmarks in vibrant blue on April 11th, World Parkinson's Day, serves as a visible symbol of hope and unity for individuals and families impacted by Parkinson's disease. Now, therefore, I, Ron Wellander, Mayor of the City of Sonoma, do hereby call upon individuals, communities, healthcare professionals, and organizations, both public and private, to observe this month with appropriate activities, including the lighting of landmarks in vibrant blue, to raise awareness and inspire action toward ending Parkinson's disease. So with that, I would love to have someone come forward, and I do believe there is the Parkinson's support group, and I would love to have someone speak to it rather than me read about it.
Do we speak to it here?
Please.
Okay. Well, the Parkinson's Support Group, it meets monthly over at the Community Center on the fourth Friday of the month from 10 to 12 o'clock. And it's a community of not only people who have Parkinson's disease, but also their family members or supporters. So all are welcome to attend whenever they can. And we also have representatives from Rocksteady Boxing, which is a boxing specifically for people with Parkinson's disease, which is led by Jeanette Perry, who's over here. And that takes place Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays from 12:30 to 1:30 at their new location over by the farmhouse. So we would be welcome to have anybody that has questions or knows anyone that would benefit from these meetings or programs.
Great. Well, thank you so much. Any comments up from the dais?
No, I have a family member, a very close brother-in-law who has Parkinson's, and just really appreciate all the work you do and how important it is to have the community organizations. I know that he has a group that he meets with. He lives on Whidbey Island, and it really it really makes an enormous difference.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you very much.
Thank you.
And with this, I believe I'm forced to have a Photoshop. So if someone would like to join us and receive this proclamation, please come on up.
All right. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
Yes, indeed. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the consent calendar. These are items that typically are looked upon in a group and that they are voted on as a group unless someone up the dais wishes to pull something. So let me start by asking my fellow council people if they want to pull any item on consent. I'm seeing no motion. I think now I do believe I'm supposed to open up to the public. If there's anybody else that would like to come forward, please identify yourself.
Thank you, Mayor Wellander. I'm Tom Conlon. I live just north of the city limits, and I serve on the city's Climate Action Commission, but tonight I'm speaking as an individual. And I wanted to meet our new city manager, and I'll be brief because I know you have a lot to get to tonight. My granddaughter is about to get her training wheels taken off, and I noticed on your consent calendar tonight, you have the city-wide bike path design change order, and that's item number 7.4. I wanted to come down and say that I support the decision to move the funding from the original plan, the Sasserini bike path, which would have served Sasserini, but not very many other community members. And in fact, I believe that the change will actually be a more beneficial change for the whole town, including people that go to Sasserini. I also wanted to say that I want to applaud the staff for bringing these changes forward, even though it means that the city has abandoned 95% funded design at that other location. So just as a note, we're going to need to get more efficient about the way we make these plans. It's not current staff's issue. Mike knows this, and Ashley too. They've done a wonderful job in making sure this funding is being well targeted, and I wanted to come here and say that myself tonight. I do note, though, that GHD's letter in the staff report points out that this project is currently ranked as a Tier 3 priority, when in fact the city's recently completed active transportation plan has a number of other bicycle improvements ranked higher. This project's not on the high injury network. We haven't had anybody really hurt there, but I do think it will be important for getting the community comfortable with this concept of speed cushions and the idea that there is a very safe north-south route on that side of town, which is the most important side of town because that is adjacent to our high injury network. So I wanted to come and say those things tonight, and thank you for your consideration, and good luck with the rest of your meeting tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no more migration to the podium, I'm going to bring it back and ask for a motion.
I will move to approve the consent calendar.
Is there
Second.
further discussion? Roll call, please.
Councilmember Ding,
Aye.
Councilmember Gurney,
Yes.
Councilmember Farrar-Rivas,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Lowe, Mayor Wellander.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. Now we're moving on to 9.1, which is a study session to discuss the draft ordinance for the mobile home park closures and conversions under the City of Sonoma's Municipal Code and recent legislation changes. Before I have the staff give us a report, I'd like to turn over to my fellow council member.
Thank you, Mayor. As some of you may know, there is a part of the conflict of interest, if you will, code. It says that if you reside within 500 yards of a project, that you might have some financial benefit or deficit from, that you should recuse yourself from that item. And as many of you know, I'm not only 500 yards from the mobile home park, it's literally my backyard. It's literally over the fence. It's 1 inch. So, and so I'm going to be leaving the meeting as per the advice of council, but I want to clarify a couple things prior to that. First of all, some people are confusing this issue with our recent districting elections thing, that because all of my district contains the 3 mobile home parks, and they are worried that maybe if we hadn't have done that, I wouldn't be in this position. But the reality is, it's where I live regardless of how we vote. So had we not done that, I still would have had to recuse myself. But some people thought it had something to do with that, and so I just want to, on the record, say it has nothing to do with that whatsoever. It's absolutely because, as you know, you're all my neighbors. So I live right there. So that's that. And then the other thing is just a little bit of a comment. The code sort of implies that, you know, you might benefit from something, or, you know, it may hurt the value of your home or whatever. I just want to be like very clear with the public in Sonoma. I ran for the city council for one reason, and that is to help the people in the city of Sonoma. I bear absolutely no benefit other than making my heart swell every time I do something to help people who live here and who live in the area. And although I have to recuse myself, I find it completely opposite to anything that I have ever said or done or will do. And I'm very sorry not to be here with my neighbors talking about this item, but know that my heart is with you. I am your neighbor, and I have full confidence in this board and this staff that you will be well represented. So thank you very much and best of luck.
Thank you. And before, as our Community Development Director comes to the podium to give the presentation, I'm just wanted to remind my fellow council members that this evening we are seeking to give some input and comment and direction to our staff, and that no definitive decisions are being made tonight, so it will truly be a study session with some input. So thank you, and with that, the microphone's yours.
All right. Well, good evening, Mayor and City Council members and community. So as stated, this is going to be a study session tonight where we're going to talk more about the legal and procedural requirements for mobile home park closures and conversions based on the direction that we have received from council. And in some cases, it's a, let's say, a litmus test of seeing something actually in place in an ordinance format and kind of getting that feedback from you all, as well as the feedback that we got from the community as well. So again, just as it's been a while, the last meeting was in December, so I'm going to do some highlights. So as a reminder, the City of Sonoma has 3 mobile home parks with over 450 units. So Moon Valley, Pueblo Serena, and Sonoma Oaks. And these units are recognized for providing an important source of affordable housing in our community. The city's housing element adopted in 2023 contains program number 11, which states that the city will update chapter 9.82 to be compliant with state law. And based on community interest, this did come up last summer and was actually agendized by the City Council to begin that conversation. So on November 5th, City Council held a study session to discuss what do we currently have in our ordinance. So what are our rules currently? Also to learn more about what those recent state law changes were to AB 2782 and SB 610. And at that meeting, staff provided all the requirements that were currently under chapter 9.82, which pertains to the closure and conversion process for mobile home parks. On December 3rd, a City Council meeting was held, again, a study session, and that one specifically was entailed getting policy direction on revisions to our existing ordinance. And based on that direction, staff has worked with the City Attorney's Office to develop a draft update to Chapter 9.82, which was published in March and provided to both the mobile home owner representatives as well as the mobile home park owner representatives. Both parties reviewed the proposed ordinance and has provided comments which were attached to your staff report. Since it's been a few months, I am going to give a little bit of a refresher on what the state law states that and those specific changes that were made to comply, then an overview of the policy direction that was received and the changes that were then proposed in the ordinance that is attached to your staff report. So I also highlight some of the policy questions that were raised during the discussion for our continued discussion tonight. So looking at AB 2782, so in 2020, the state legislature adopted this law, and it's intended to revise the minimum standard for mobile home conversions that are within our government code. So the state law, as of 2020, requires that the applicant to compensate a mobile home occupant for the full in-place value of the mobile home based on an appraisal if the displaced occupant cannot be relocated to another park. Before AB 2782 and under our municipal code, the relocation assistance could not exceed the cost of the relocation. The state law also requires that the city is to make a finding that the proposed or whether the proposed conversion will or will not reduce housing opportunities for low and moderate income households in the jurisdiction before approving an application. And the applicant is required to provide a copy of the impact report to the owners or occupants at least 60 days before a public hearing, rather than the 15 days that are in our current code. Under SB 610, this was adopted in October of 2025, and this bill contains specific provisions for the mobile home park owner that are responsible, what they are responsible for in the event of a disaster. So by this law, they are going to be required that the impact report required for a conversion or a closure would include a technical service inspection report from HCD that's going to identify the observed conditions within the park after that disaster, and that the mobile home park owner is not required to pay to the displaced resident the in-place market value of the displaced resident's mobile home. So the changes that are being proposed in the municipal code that you'll see on this slide reference, I'm highlighting in the code the specific section of the municipal code where the edits can be found in this presentation. So Chapter 9.82 of the municipal code is what we use to establish the rules and processes required when the property owner proposes to close or convert an existing mobile home park to a different use or just to close. The City Council adopted this chapter because the conversion or closure of mobile home parks can have an adverse effect on residents. Some of that might be because of the high cost of relocation or the difficulty of finding similar or affordable replacement housing, or even comparable mobile home park spaces. The chapter is intended to mitigate these adverse impacts in accordance with state law and at the discretion of City Council. So our current ordinance dates from 2004. So to comply with AB 2782, the city made these specific changes. So we amended the code to require the report to contain an in-place value that each mobile home would have if the park were not being closed, and that the value would be determined by a state-certified appraiser chosen by the city at the cost of the applicant, and that this will not be required in the instance of a disaster. Required a technical report from HCD in the instance of a disaster. Updated the notice requirement and disclosure provision to reflect the required 60 days. Required the City Council to make a finding as to whether that conversion will result in a shortage of affordable housing, and required the applicant to pay the in-place market value of any displaced resident's mobile home if it cannot be relocated, which again will not be required in the instance of a closure due to a disaster. So now I'm going to talk a little bit more about the specific policy direction. So those were the changes that we made under state law. We had conversations at that last meeting about policy direction. And what I have done in the slides that you see before you is where it is bold and underlined, that is the law, the state law. Where it is bold and italics, those were policy directions that we had received at the council meeting in December. So the other items are things that we're already doing under the current code. So as a reminder, to close or convert a mobile home park, there are going to be a few steps in the application and review process. The first is that any person applying to change that use, close or cease operations for a mobile home park must file the relocation impact report. The city will select an independent consultant to prepare this report at the cost of the applicant, and it could include additional sub-consultants, including that state-certified appraiser, as well as the housing relocation specialist. The report must provide detailed information on the park, its residents, including the occupancy, and then also the proposed new use, list of comparable mobile home parks within Sonoma County. And again, we'll talk more about comparable parks on another slide because that was one of the points for future discussion. The report must also estimate the full cost of relocating that mobile home. It must also estimate the in-place fair market value of any mobile homes that cannot be reasonably relocated to another comparable park. A relocation plan is to be prepared that proposes measures to mitigate adverse impacts, and this is with the assistance of that relocation housing specialist that was identified. The park owner must provide a free copy of the report and a copy of our municipal code to all residents 60 days before the public hearing. And that furthermore, new prospective residents must be notified if a conversion application has been filed. So again, in looking at the slide in front of you, those items that were identified that we discussed for policy direction are about whether or not the proposed new use would be required as part of an application. In the actual code, we're saying if applicable. If there is a new use, then we would see that new use as part of the project as a whole. The comparable mobile home parks, again, I'll talk about that in another slide. A questionnaire must be circulated to all residents to collect the information on the residents. That's something that we added. And then that the assistance of a relocation housing specialist. So to move forward with that, the City Council will hold a public hearing on that report and the conversion application. In order to approve that conversion, closure, or the cessation of use, the Council must make specific written findings based on the evidence presented regarding any specific factors and any other they deem appropriate. And these include, as listed, that the relocation impact report provides all the required information by state law and our city code, that there are available mobile home lots within Sonoma County to accommodate the displaced mobile homes at the time of conversion. Options are provided to residents disrupted by conversion. The City Council must also find that the relocation plan provides for reasonable costs of relocation, that the proposed conversion will not harm public health, safety, and general welfare, and if the conversion proposed is to another residential use, that there are opportunities for the residents to purchase or rent these new units, and if displaced, would be an unreasonably long time. And then lastly, whether that conversion or closure will contribute to a shortage of housing opportunities to low and moderate income households. If the City Council cannot make the required findings or impose sufficient mitigation measures to address any impacts, it must deny the application. In regards to the relocation assistance, think of this as those measures that are put into place to mitigate the impacts on the residents. If the application is approved, the City Council may impose reasonable conditions on the applicant to mitigate the impacts of the relocation. This is going to be documented in the replacement and relocation plan, and it'll that is intended to adequately mitigate the impact upon the ability of our displaced residents of the mobile home park to be converted or closed. And this allows them to find adequate housing. These conditions may include relocation assistance and or payment of the cost of physically moving that mobile home, or for tenants, the cost of moving to a new home up to 50 miles, payment of a lump sum to cover the first and last month's rent and security deposit at a new park or replacement housing, the payment of a lump sum to compensate for the difference between the old park's rent and a new park, replacement housing rent during that first year of the new tenancy, the in-place fair market value if the home cannot be relocated, and if the park is converted or setting aside affordable units for displaced residents, additional rent subsidy to lower income households and residents with disabilities for up to 36 months. And then the residents and applicants may also participate and agree to mutually satisfactory conditions. Again, the same treatment is done to the text. Those that are in bold and italics were those that are based on direction that was received. We had conversation around what could these relocation assistance options look like specifically for low income or lower income households and disabled residents. And so these are an option that is put out there for an additional rent subsidy. The amount of time that is in here is obviously one of those items that is for discussion. And then the first and last month's rent at replacement housing, and then the rent differential were also part of what was discussed about providing assistance for tenants. So the other part of the relocation assistance that was added based on policy direction is that any payments that are made would be made within 90 days. And then also that there be an exemption to that relocation assistance that can be requested. There is a new section in the code that does allow for additional documentation to be provided that would show that there's a financial hardship or that it's not economically feasible, or would eliminate any substantially or all reasonable use of their economic value. One of the requests was, what does a timeline look like for a project to submit and some of those notifications? Other policy direction that we received during the conversations in December was to add a notice of intent. And so the proposed notice of intent has that 30 days prior to the application that the residents will be given notice. And then that proof of notice is going to be provided with their initial application to the community development director. That was the other direction that was received. With that review, there's no change in the timeline as far as when we receive and when we need to hire a consultant, which would be within 90 days. The additional direction was that we would do a questionnaire that would be circulated to residents to gather that personal information. And then that would be within 30 days of that consultant selection so that we can keep this moving forward on the timeline. Once the relocation impact report was completed, staff would do their review and then set a hearing. With the hearing, again, we have a state law requiring that 60 days prior to hearing, or at least 60 days, that the applicant is going to provide that final impact report to all the residents and homeowners. The additional direction that we had received was that the applicant would hold a community meeting at least 30 days prior to the hearing. As far as processing, and we added a little bit more in the processing, was that the city's going to send a public notice 20 days before the hearing. The applicant would submit proof of service of them providing the RIR to the residents and homeowners 7 days, and then a hearing would be held by City Council. After hearing, that again was per direction, was that a written agreement would be recorded within 30 days of approval of a conversion or closure permit. Also, that that we talked about a minute ago was that the relocation payment would be paid within 90 days. Also, was recommended that we add expiration, which is consistent with our development projects, is that the expiration is 2 years from the approval date with one extension for 1 year. Discussion points. In your packets, there is some information around comparable mobile home parks, and it gave a definition that was in our current zoning code, as well as the definition that was provided in the example from the Tri-Park Committee's attorney. And in looking at that, the big difference is one, that they added Napa County, but then they also asked to include the Cal EnviroScreen and disadvantaged communities map. And by doing that, you would take away some of the ability of these other parks as potential relocation areas. So I did look at Santa Rosa as an example. and that was provided in that report. And this shows you what a CalEnviro map looks like. I boxed in red that green color. That is the city of Sonoma's mobile home parks are within that 20 to 30 green color. So not the darkest green, and not the lightest green, but right in the edge. So there are parks in Santa Rosa that are in the green or in even a greener area. And then there's a number of parks that you see, especially around South Highway 101, or south of Highway 12 on 101, that are in orange, yellow areas. So our recommendation is to not change the existing definition, but again, it's up to your discussion tonight. We also received public comments, again, both from the attorney representing the Tri-Park Committee as well as the attorney for the mobile home park owners. In conversation with the city attorney's office, there are 3 items that we do recommend going ahead and making edits to the ordinance, and so I'm going to talk to those here. So the first is in regards to the text that says shall not exceed the reasonable cost of relocation. This was removed from state law with AB 2782, and this was an oversight. We did intend to remove that, and so we are recommending to remove that, and that's the text change that you would see in 9.82.065. In addition, there was a comment in regarding clarifying the role of Chapter 9.82 in the Subdivision Map Act. And so this, again, is a change that we are proposing. And the language that you see here in red and underline is being proposed to be added to Section 9.82020, which is the applicability section. And it just states that for a subdivision that is created from the conversion of a mobile home park to resident ownership, to be very specific, and that's in accordance with the law. And then another comment came up around our questionnaire and confidentiality, and the rights of park owners' ability to access these questionnaires as they potentially impose financial obligation. And staff does agree that the park owners are entitled to access the questionnaires. Staff and the city attorney plan to amend the language, which would then provide the ability for staff to create rules and regulations in order to manage that confidentiality. The intent being that to allow access for mobile home park owners, but ensuring that third parties aren't getting access to people's private information. So with that, this concludes staff's presentation tonight, a lot shorter than the last one. But we look forward to more conversation and questions. And again, our city attorney is on Zoom. And the intent is to take that direction from you all tonight. And based on that direction, either we'll have another study session or we'll go ahead and introduce an ordinance.
Very good, thank you. So I'll bring it back to the dais and ask if any of my fellow members have questions for staff.
I have lots of questions and discussion points, so I'm trying to decide in this process the best points to do that, because there's a number of items I want to bring up that haven't showed up as actual changes yet. So just want to see how we want to do that. Do we want to do that under discussion, or do you want me to kind of lay those out now and then we would have there later in discussion?
I'll let the mayor decide.
I might suggest that we go ahead and stick to questions, then we'll have the benefit of the public's input, and then that might enrich your discussions maybe at the end.
And then I can make my suggestions.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, if you have questions maybe specific to what I've presented so far, and then if other things come up, and then we can have more discussion around that. It's up to you.
I'm fine doing, as long as, yeah.
Oh, you will have plenty of opportunity.
Okay, great, thank you.
So, you're going to start?
You go ahead.
Well, So, one of the things that came up was the natural disaster exemption, and you made specific reference to a couple of items here, not if the result is by disaster.
So if it is a disaster that has occurred that is triggering a closure or the end of that use as a mobile home park, the state law is written, and then that per SB 610, they did make those changes, probably because of that last fire that we just had down in LA area, that there was two things. One is that HCD is going to come around because they're responsible for the actual homes themselves. So they're going to do an observation, apparently, and they're going to have an inspection report that is going to be required. And so we're supposed to receive that with that relocation impact report and what gets seen by you all for the closure. The other thing it says is that the mobile home park owner is not required to pay for a displaced resident for that in-place market value of that mobile home. It's very specific to that. There is a section, there's nothing in the state law that says that you're completely exempt from a closure process as a whole. It actually specifically states that the whole section, which is 65863.7K, it states that the whole section still applies except for the payment of the mobile home, which is included in the text. So it's very specific in there that this whole chapter still applies, except for that one section that talks about payment.
Okay. All right, thank you.
I have a follow-up question to that in regards to what is the definition of a disaster, and should the definition, does it include that has actually been declared a natural disaster or health disaster, or
Yeah, it has to be a declared disaster from either the President of the United States or the governor. It's the definition of disaster under the Civil Code 798.56, which does require it to be a declared emergency related to riot, insurrection, natural disaster, flood, fire, etc.
Yeah, and then it's just helpful, I think, if we include that language in there, that and referencing that code. So I know this is more in the discussion stage, so that's my question. So that's going to be one of the things I'll bring
So
forward.
the entire code references this state law around the mobile home park. That mobile home park ordinance then referenced the civil code, because this is different codes that apply. So just say.
We'll get.
And
I
we just
understand.
followed what the state law said.
Mm-hmm.
I get that. I'll come back when we're in the discussion period.
Is it possible to increase the volume of Mr. Rubin?
No, go ahead.
My question is regarding an exemption for financial hardship mobile home owner. Any detail or any objective the standard how to assess the hardship?
So in the ordinance itself, just a second, wrong packet. .82.070. So if you're looking at, I don't know what page of the whole packet, but it's a lot of red if you're in color.
Page 68 of the entire packet. Page 15 is the red line.
Thank you. Page 15, if you're just looking at the one document. And David, can you say what page of the entire packet?
68. Well, it starts on 67, but the bulk of it's on 68.
Right. So, to justify the basis of the request of the exemption from relocation assistance, the applicant shall provide the following information. So, it's asking for profit and loss statements that are audited. It's asking for a statement under penalty of perjury by a contractor in regards to repairs and improvements necessary to maintain the park. And then again with that audit, itemized list. And then a statement, again, that's audited by an accountant on the necessary increase to the rental rates in order to make those repairs. And then within the next 5 years, the estimated total cost of the relocation assistance, a comparison by an appraiser on those estimated values if they were to continue as a mobile home park, and if they were developing according to the proposed conversion of that park, and then any other information that is pertinent.
I look at these, I couldn't see any specific or objectives from the numbers or any standard, except the standard. For example, didn't mention any disposable income, because each family, you have the income, you have the social security income, you have retirement on a pension, but also you need to pay land rent, you need to pay the food. How to assess these kind of
So number 3.
Okay.
Is the total cost of the relocation assistance. So you're still going to prepare, so the questionnaire is still going to be created, and that questionnaire is going to get the information from the homeowners as well as the residents. That information is collected, and then it turns into numbers, right? Like you were talking about, and that's what feeds into that relocation plan. That is the item number 3 on this list.
Okay.
So,
All right, thank you.
And we have to, every application is going to be analyzed based on the particular facts and circumstances related to that particular park. So we can't provide, a blanket statement that if your, cost can't cover 50% of your expenses, therefore you meet the relocation exemption. So we've drafted it in a way that allows for the council to, in consultation with the experts that would be engaged, the relocation assistants and those other folks, to kind of make that decision and to help the council walk through those decision points.
All right, yeah, later on I will keep discussing this point. Thank you.
Is there a definition of comparable housing or comparable mobile home park? Is there a definition as to what that means?
on
Miss it?
page 3 of the 9.82.015, lot less red. Page 2 of the ordinance draft.
Goes under B, I believe.
Yes, it's page 3, but it starts on page 2. So then you'll have comparable housing, which is, we didn't modify from too much. From the original, we just added, instead of floor area, we modified it to size and then added the word amenities. And then again, the comparable mobile home park is a mobile home park within Sonoma County, and then substantially equal in terms of park amenities, rent, and proximity to services.
Thank you. I'm sorry I missed that.
It's okay. It's not in red, so it's not as.
It's not in red. Yeah, so then I'll ask this as a question now, and then we can put it in discussion. So, because for those two, can we add, it's in the form of a question, using my Jeopardy language. No, that's a form of an answer. Okay, here. So can we add comply with current state law, the Housing Crisis Act, and Uniform Reallocation Act as updated from time to time? so that when there's updates from the state law, we don't have to come back and reapprove the ordinance, and also add language to both. Can we add language to both that on the second part, that those comparable park and housing be decent, safe, sanitary, and locations? And I understand what we saw about the whole thing about exposed to environmental conditions. And I realize that there's all of these things that we are referring to, but I think it's just really helpful, especially for the mobile home park, the mobile home owners, that this language is there, because what has happened in other places, and maybe it wouldn't happen here because we're doing this deep dive, but things happen in a way where things move ahead, and the mobile home owners are not aware of what their other rights are. So I think in bringing some of this language into our ordinance really supports that.
So we'll go into your list of things in just a second. I'm going to get, I think, two of them, and you may have three. The first one is the law doesn't actually define comparable housing or comparable mobile home park. There is no definition in the law. I went back through it. There is no definitions, period. There are definitions that are referenced, like disaster is referenced in civil code. This is what that is. So as far as the definition of this is this, that does not exist. In a lot of cases throughout this ordinance, working with the attorney's office, we added language and pulling it from the state law and added it where applicable within our language. So some of the edits that you see is because we're adding their words, or in the case that we recognized, taking out the words that they took out. And so we do want to make sure that you are aware of that. There are no definitions for those words. And so referencing something like that it doesn't lend itself in that way. To go look, you wouldn't find a definition, is what I'm trying to say. The other is the Housing Crisis Act only applies to development projects. They are not connected to an actual closure. That's a completely different process. The Housing Crisis Act is something that we have to comply with any development project that is a residential development project. So if there's, if that's not occurring, then Housing Crisis Act doesn't apply.
But I don't think what I was asking for was a definition, because we don't know in the future if there will be better definitions that are applied by state law. What I'm asking for is that within this section, we say that we would be complying clearly with state current, because I think this is a really key issue of comparable housing. Anyway, so we can get into it with the discussion. So I'm not asking for a list of defining, I'm asking for that complying, and then I will review my notes on the Housing Act, the Housing Crisis Act, and get back to you when we get into the discussion. But
Okay.
anyway, the second, the language to both decent, safe, and sanitary is something I think that is,
I think,
Could be
and
added
Jennifer,
in.
you can correct me if I'm wrong, but we looked at including the decent, safe, and sanitary language, which comes from the housing
Crisis Act.
crisis.
the housing yeah. And instead, we just left it with, a reference to the Uniform Housing Code.
Yeah.
It's also in the Uniform Housing Code is where that language is as well. That's where that language comes from. And so, rather than take out specific words from a code, it seems easier to just reference that code. That way, if that code is changed, we don't need to change the ordinance.
Yeah, this is getting a discussion. I think it's easier for lawyers. I don't think it's easier for homeowners or residents of a mobile home park. So one of the things that I do want to say before I say anything else or ask any other questions is there's been amazing work done here by the staff. This is really, really good. We have a very good ordinance as it is now. And what we're really trying to do is close some potential loopholes to make sure that those loopholes cannot be, utilized. So, going for it. Thank you.
Okay, I've got a few questions. I need a little bit of education. Could you help me understand Cal Enviro screen and disadvantaged communities? When you were sharing that and your recommendation is not to change the existing definition, which is fine, I need some help in understanding what that is.
So the state it puts out this Cal Enviro screen in the disadvantaged communities mapping. And specifically to Cal Enviro screen, there are certain provisions in laws that are going to reference this. And sometimes it pertains to housing placement. Sometimes it pertains to like environmental justice requirements under our general plan. And other times it's for, in the disadvantaged communities being eligible for funding that will help with any kind of environmental impacts of that area that are impacting quality of life, their health, other things like that.
But in this application where it appears that we're trying to identify if there are other available locations, is this a case where the law is saying you cannot relocate individuals from a park that has ceased or closed to another park that has greater environmental conditions or concerns or limitations?
That's what the proposed ordinance was included. It did include to say if the mobile home park that's in Sonoma, as I noted, was in the 20s for all of our parks. So anything that was above, so 25 and above, so anything in that light green up to red, if that mobile home park was located in there, they would not be a park that would be eligible to relocate to.
Thank you.
The idea behind it is to be similar in that sense. It's providing another level of similarity to our mobile home parks.
Okay, thank you. In terms of the findings, I was a little bit perplexed on one of the needs, and that is it talks about the closure would contribute to the shortage of housing opportunities, and I'm just thinking the dots aren't connecting for me. We're closing housing opportunities, and then the finding that we have to make is whether or not it's contributing to the shortage of housing opportunities. I don't know how one would not make that finding. So why are we doing this?
Because the state told us we had to.
I don't like Sacramento.
I know. You wanted me to say that. That's why it's the whether it will or will not. So let's say there is a project proposed with this closure, and they are proposing affordable units that are comparable to, or replacement housing that is comparable to what is being taken out, and it's being offered as available. So then in that case, we're not contributing to that shortage, right, by the project itself that's being proposed. Okay. But in most cases, like you said, if it's just a sheer closure, unless there's some other project we didn't plan on that's getting done the same year.
The next question I have is, if a mobile home park closes, does that closure have impact on the current housing cycle's RENA number? And if so, what is it?
So it doesn't have, so the way that the RENA numbers are calculated are about our new units.
Yes.
So when a new unit gets a building permit, it adds it up, and so when we submit our report every year, that number is getting reported. What also is getting reported is with that new unit, if something was demolished to create that unit, and that is in another column on that lovely spreadsheet. What doesn't get reported is just outright demolition. Does it impact numbers? I would have to look a little deeper. Let's say that our park was a deed restricted, affordable housing, units within it. Those would get reported because there's another table that does report loss of actual restricted housing or protected housing.
Okay. Then,
Can I make a quick question after that?
oh, sure. As
'Cause
long
would
as you
it-
keep it in a question
Wouldn't that
format.
it could potentially affect future RENA numbers? Once you're out of the current period, it would affect future
They
RENA
would,
numbers.
so the place that it's going to be seen is in the finance department survey that comes out that we do report unit loss. And there is a one for mobile homes that we would report that on that report, not the RENA, so different. And so does that play into research and HCD paying attention? Yes. Does that affect RENA allocation? Maybe. So remember, RENA allocation is a bigger concept. I'm curious to see how it rolls out in this cycle, to be honest. What happens is the state gives a number of this many units to our entire region, ABAC region, the entire Bay Area. And then they decide how it's going to divide up. And then we further talk more about how we're going to divide up. Or if we're going to go together. Napa went together and they, as a whole county, and figured out how they were going to allocate individually. Obviously, Napa County took the majority, and within city of Napa, that was an agreement that was made over there. So there's not this one-for-one consideration when RENA allocations roll out. It is a mathematical, non-understood calculation.
Okay, thank you for that. Do we have any more questions up here? And I'm seeing none at this point, so this will be the opportunity for the public to come forward. However, before you rush into that long line, how many people would like to speak this evening? This is America. We do want you to speak. I would simply request a couple things. Be respectful of time. Repetition doesn't necessarily endear us or make us feel stronger one way or the other. But at the same time, I welcome everybody. If there is a desire, a quiet expression to have the audience support a statement that's made at the microphone, a simple wave of the hand will be fine. No groans, no cheers, no clapping. Just some sort of expression that it will be recognized, I think, would be appropriate. So with that instruction again, please come make your line, come up to the dais, please state your name, and talk slow because we're taking notes.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, staff, and a special welcome to Ms. Alilovich, our interim city manager. Bonnie Joy Koslan, homeowner, De Anza-Moon Valley community. I want to thank you, and we all want to thank you, for your continued time and efforts with this ordinance update. We appreciate having the extension from the previous March 30th date. This project is extremely complex, and we all need adequate time to understand it. We also appreciate your effort to do a third study session, if needed, depending on tonight's proceedings. Behind me are many of my neighbors and our supporters. As you know, our communities comprise a significant portion of affordable housing in the city. I want to emphasize also that each of the three parks is a unique community, including its ownership structure. De Anza-Moon Valley community is now an all-age park, converted from a 55-plus park in 2010. It is a corporation owned by the Gelfand family, whose homeowners are working class families and seniors. Pueblo Serena is partly owned by the family that built it and partly by a corporation. It is a senior park. Sonoma Oaks is half market rate rentals. the result of a conversion in 2009. The remaining 50 privately owned homes are still under the city's RSO. I mention these distinctions because it's one of the reasons we need to consider all of the customized amendments to the basic state bill, AB 278T. These amendments take into consideration the distinct ownership situation of the three parks. The risk potential for the future foreclosure and conversion varies with each park's identity. The Tri-Park Committee has concluded this concern in its analysis. The protections must be all-inclusive, no loopholes. Thank you, and may we ask that you all. Thank you very much.
Good evening, Council Mayor and council members and staff. My name is Lynn Marie DeVincent. The Tri-Park Committee would like to use some of our time tonight to bring insights into each of the 5 items that we have identified as the 5 fixes. I'm going to be talking about loophole number 3, which is actually more of a gap than a loophole. The current draft ordinance provides for a concurrent review of a conversion application. It aligns with state law and can prevent homeowners from being displaced if redevelopment is delayed or never materializes. However, this requirement can be circumvented. A standalone closure application can be submitted that does not identify a proposed future use. This gap has been exploited in neighboring Sonoma County jurisdictions. What is needed to close this gap is an additional finding and certification requirement for situations in which a park owner seeks closure without identifying a new use for the property. The park owner would be required to certify the closure is not being pursued to avoid the conversion requirements. They would be required to provide evidence that their request is absolutely necessary for circumstances beyond their control. This is a balanced approach. It preserves the ordinance's procedural protections, but also allows for exceptions in limited circumstances when supported by evidence. So we respectfully request that you direct staff to close this gap and using Mr. Constantine's letter to identify the specific text that needs to be changed. Thank you.
I have 2 short questions that are outside of the purview of what has been presented. The first one is, and this is hypothetical, if the closure of the parks for the seniors causes or creates great hardship, financial, emotional, physical, on the senior citizens, could this be construed or considered elder abuse? And if so, is the park owner subject to class action? Okay? The second one, my second question is there any sort of conflict of interest with the city, state, and county in terms of great financial gain by putting up $1 million condos on these properties? If that's the case, both of these issues should be investigated. Thank you.
Regina, you should tell them your name.
Regina Baker.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. How are you doing? Hardworking county workers here, and hello, my fellow senior citizens who have a mobile home. I'm Patrice Schmidt. 20 years ago, we have a whole different crew up here, but 20 years ago, I knew all the members, and they were for fighting for us, and boy, did they fight for us. I need to know that you will be fighting for us. us who are on rent control, Social Security, and senior citizens. If we're relocated, are you going to relocate us to another rent control? And if that is taken away, what happens to that rent control? Do you allocate it to another part of the city? Or is it taken away from you? Each district and city and county is regulated to have a certain amount of low housing. Is it taken away and put somewhere else in the city, or is it taken away from you completely? Because we had 100 homes. Thompson Property bought up, and the one before them, the corporation, bought up almost 1/3 to 40% of the houses, pulled them out, put a new one in, 3,000 is the rent. So ours is rent control. So did those 50 homes that were rent control, what did you do with that? Where does that go? Do you allocate it somewhere else, or do they take it away from you? And excuse me, I'm sorry, I came late to the party. Jennifer, what do you do? Are you a lawyer for us, for the city?
I think it's best to direct your comments here, if you don't mind.
Excuse me.
So any more questions? You've raised questions which we won't necessarily be able to answer at this point in time. We've noted them, and there certainly will be some discussion following.
Thank you. And I just wanted to thank her.
That you can do.
And ditto what she said.
Good evening. Thank you, distinguished mayor and council members. I'm Mary Stearns. I live at Pueblo Serena. The draft ordinance, we thank you for your hard work. It shows that you intend to protect mobile home park owners should there be a conversion or a closure. And you recognize that these parks provide affordable housing with a diverse population, including families and seniors. I'm here to briefly discuss 3 technical fixes. I think you fixed the first one, which our attorney was concerned about, that you make sure that this new ordinance applies to mobile home park conversions that require a subdivision map approval. I believe that was a change in red that was discussed, so I'm glad for that. Number 2, the second definition that we would like to be clarified is the comparable mobile homes and comparable housing. We had some discussion with that. The language that was discussed about decent, safe, and sanitary, and located in an area not subject to unreasonable adverse environmental conditions, comes directly from CFR 24.2A1 through 8. And it was a list of those things discussing comparable housing. So I think we would like that wording to be included in the new ordinance. And it can be referred, the CFR can be referred to, but if we are to be displaced due to disclosure or conversion, we shouldn't be made to move to something inferior, unsafe, or in a worse location. And so that's why that decent, safe, sanitary, located in an area needs to happen. And the last one is the definition of closure, which we would just ask you follow Will Constantine's memo that says you should add closure includes all closures referred to by closure contained in Government Code Section 65863.7 as intended by that section and interpreted by the courts. Thank you very much.
Mayor, City Council, and staff. My name is Jody Johnson, and I'm a Mobile Park resident and the volunteer vice president of GSMOL, advocating for mobile park residents in 13 counties in my zone. I know firsthand about closure threats, closure loopholes being used by bad actor mobile park owners, as we are referred to as Ground Zero where I live. Petaluma, Windsor, Santa Rosa, Cotati, Lake County, Alameda County, Santa Paula, Goleta, Fresno, Oceanside, and more are cities and counties that had not codified city closure conversion ordinances or closed loopholes to align with AB 2782, the state law that was legislated for years into law February 13th of 2020. It was because of that position on not proactively protecting mobile park residents at city level that assault on all of the above city and counties took on massive litigation in a defensive path to defend, strengthen, and enforce closure conversion after the loopholes were used by bad actors. Another relevant fact is that never did these cities see an issue because most were run by mom and pop owners, and on their minds all was well, no need to strengthen and align state laws. This was the costly oversight, both financially and mentally health-wise, for the most vulnerable senior and families living in a mobile home they own. Proactive approaches are always less costly than defending the intent of cities in the first place. Take Littlewoods Mobile Home Park in Petaluma. After an attempt from large investment group park owners to get another $1,530 a month in ground rent and then denied by an arbitrator, closure was weaponized against the residents. If the language in the city's closure did not state that the park owner seeking closure must state what the change of use would be, then park owners, after the required relocation report and a yes vote from the city to allow closure, could in fact own all the mobile homes after closure, raise the ground rents to $2,500 a month, and gain what they were denied in an arbitration. Codifying mandated state law and closing loopholes is a far less costly approach to any city anywhere as it comes to mobile parks. The cities I mentioned were caught off guard simply because in their mind all was well before it wasn't. Please close the required loopholes, make the revisions mandatory and not discretionary, state mobile park conversions in the language, cover all closure attempts of mobile parks, and simply protect the vulnerable. One last thing is you state about the fact that you would allow the park owners to see the relocation report before it is actually produced to the city itself. That is not a law, not allowed under the state law because it is from a private consultant that does the relocation confidentially and then produces it to both the park residents and the park owners after the city gets a hold of it. Thank you very much.
Good evening, council members. My name is Dean Moser, and I'm here representing the Aguirre family, the owners of the mobile home park, Pueblo Serena. Mr. Aguirre built that park along with the Heidi's. The Heidi's ran out of money when they were trying to build it, but Mr. Aguirre came in and helped him finish it. So we've owned that park since the early 70s. I've been, somebody was here earlier saying that it's a different group from 20 years ago, but it's certainly a different group from 30 years ago. And I've been involved in, the rent control ordinance all the way since 1991, 1992. Those were the big years for the rent control. Of course, then we've had changes. And I sat in your seat as one of the non-voting members of the rent control board at the time. But the bottom line, what I'm trying to say is that we've been here a long time, okay? We're not going anywhere. We do not want to close our park, and neither do the other two mobile home park owners, okay? What I'm concerned about in particular with this ordinance is in case of a natural disaster. Now, the mayor mentioned that there's a specific code section. National disaster is one that occurs when a governor or president or somebody of high authority that way declares a natural disaster. But what happens if Pueblo Serena were to burn down? That's not a natural disaster in that sense, okay? But it's bad. So we have a situation where if we look at that code section that the mayor indicated, it's not going to happen. It's not going to be a natural disaster. So, but it's a disaster for Pueblo Serena, and it's gone. So if that were to happen, which hopefully it doesn't, but we know what can happen vis-a-vis Paradise or the Tubbs fire, that type of thing. If it were to happen, I have a loan. Okay, I have to pay property taxes. I have to, clean up the park itself. You don't want all of the ashes sitting there, and I have to clean up the toxic waste that doesn't come from me, but it comes from the mobile homes that were destroyed. So what you're asking me to do under this ordinance is to now move all the people, okay? And the code section said I didn't have to pay the fair market value of the home, but I have to move everybody to comparable places. Where are the comparable places? You've seen the map. There aren't any comparable places to put 127 spaces. So, have to think about that. What happens in that case? Natural disaster, they have insurance, I have insurance, right? My insurance will probably just cover my loan. So it's a problem, and I'd like you to think a little bit more about that. This ordinance has changed, didn't change it just to upgrade it to state law, okay? Our attorney sent a letter to you folks in November that showed simple adjustments to bring this ordinance into compliance with state law. Okay, it was pretty simple. This ordinance, the changes that they've made to this ordinance now make it almost a taking, okay? Nobody can close their park economically under the terms of this ordinance. And that's what you want. I know you don't want to have a change, but the city needs to think about it a little bit too. Is that in the best interest of everybody in the city to preclude the possibility of maybe building apartments there? I have 15 acres. Think of how many units you could get, low income or otherwise, on 15 acres. Okay, I don't want to do that. We're in the mobile home park business, but you have to think about what might happen. So consider those items when you look at this ordinance. This ordinance is too tough. Nobody could close if they wanted to. It's not economic. But in particular, from my standpoint, think about a disaster, not a codified one that we talked about, but a disaster where I don't have any income coming in and I still have to do the items I discussed. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Council. My name is Lowe, and I'm with WMA. We're representing mobile home park owners in the city of Sonoma here today. I'm here to speak to the park owners' concern about this closure ordinance. Thank you, first of all, for providing us the opportunity to participate in this process. You have received our official comments, and they're a part of your packet today. I ask that you please read those comments very carefully if you have not yet done so. In these comments, the park owner's attorney highlights 6 specific issues that park owners have with this draft. I would like to touch on just 2 of them with the time that I have. First and foremost, like Dean just mentioned, the city does not provide an exemption in the event that the park is destroyed by a natural disaster or a fire. We provided exemption language to your staff, and it is included in the red line version submitted by our attorney in November of last year, included in your packet in Exhibit 1. Without this exemption, this document makes rebuilding a park after a natural disaster completely out of the question. It must be included. Secondly, park owners are being asked to pay relocation costs and subsidize future rent not only to the resident owners of these mobile homes, but to all non-resident persons as well. Extended family members, longtime residents outside of the contract, caretakers, people who these mobile home park owners have no contract whatsoever with. In a more general sense, we see this ordinance as a needless assault on some of your city's own housing providers. It's a very one-sided. It's developed based on untested drafts and ordinances from places that have never dealt with a real-world park closure situation. None of them have. We have provided the city with a draft of what a simple ordinance change would look like based on the experiences of property owners and attorneys who have worked in the closure and the redevelopment of these parks. If you guys are looking for a skeleton of an ordinance to look at that has been tested in the past and park owners and has gone through the process of a park closure, you can look at the city of San Jose. It's the biggest municipality in the state with the most parks in the entire state, and they have an ordinance that has been well thought out and has been used effectively in a real world scenario. This will not do it. We respectfully ask that you direct your staff to consider the draft our attorney has sent you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is John Kyle. I just want to respond a little to the park owners' statements. First of all, in terms of the current owners, we have no quibbles with them. They're running a great operation. The problem is that things change. Things change with the sale, and there's no pre-notice of a sale. And then all of a sudden, you're faced with an entirely different situation, an entirely different organization that's after maximizing their profits and recouping all their expenses from the sale. That's what we're seeing throughout the county, and that was our motivation for coming to you, to update our ordinance to take care of that. Second thing is that I've looked at their letter, and the law has evolved. They're using older standards that were in existence, and what we're talking about is how the law has evolved, and things like the Housing Crisis Act and the Uniform Relocation Act contain a lot of definitions that we want incorporated into our ordinance. That's exactly the kind of changes that our attorney has outlined in his very expert memorandum about the few changes. With that said, we're very much in agreement with the direction that the city is going. That draft ordinance was a good. We were listened to. Let's put it that way. But you're also getting some really high class legal advice from our attorney. After all, he was one of the basic forces behind 2782, which is what brought in all these changes. And what he's saying is that loopholes get exploited. That's lawfare is the law is how things are run these days. And what we're looking at is this ordinance being pretty much airtight, and that's what those changes are about. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John.
Good evening, Caitlin Cornwall, Sonoma Valley Collaborative. And as you know, I'm here doing my best to represent not just mobile home park residents, but a really wide array of interests, your constituents, including the business community, the health community, nonprofits and schools that serve families, et cetera. So it's been a long-time priority of Sonoma Valley Collaborative to not let a single unit of affordable housing in Sonoma go. And that's why we've invested a lot of time working with the residents on this policy. It's really important that that we keep our mobile home parks. We cannot replace them. Not only most of those homes can't be moved, but if people have to leave those parks, they will be gone from our community. They can't afford anywhere else. I think you know that. And we are really happy, actually, to see the intent that is expressed in the draft ordinance. It's great. But as John said, there are still some loopholes, and they will be exploited. There's an industry that is making money on mobile home parks, and there's a power imbalance. And so it's really on you and the city to make an ordinance that will prevent loss of this housing and loss of these people. So two specific things. One, on the whole issue of comparable housing, I think it's really difficult to have something objective to use to determine what is comparable. And so we support the use of an objective set of indicators like CalEnviroscreen. You could see from the map that if you did not use CalEnviroscreen, you could easily be in a situation where people are being displaced from a really nice park like Pueblo Serena and Santa Rosa and being put in a trailer park along Todd Road on Highway 101, where there's a lot of noise and dust and people have asthma. And that's why those places show up on CalEnviroscreen. We should not be displacing people from here to a park like that. Something objective that can't be, that future versions of yourself don't have to argue about would be a really good thing. So second point, kind of along those lines, we would ask you to, in your discussion, this stuff is very arcane. It's easy to get something wrong. So we think it's important that you express your intent to staff so that in the future,
for the sake of future council members, future planning commission members, God forbid there's a lawsuit, when this meeting is brought back up to look at, it's really clear what you meant to have happen, that you did not want anyone displaced from Sonoma because they lived in a mobile home park, that you want to be on the side of residents because they're important to our community, things like that, general statements like that that can give the city in the future a good leg to stand on. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. I'm Kate Vibey. I'm a housing policy analyst at Legal Aid of Sonoma County. And I want to start by just really thanking council and staff for all of your work on this. I know this is a really complex policy area and the stakes are incredibly high. So thank you so much for your work on this and your efforts to really make sure we get it right, to protect folks. At Legal Aid, we provide free legal services to low-income and vulnerable residents throughout the county. And like many of our sister legal aid organizations throughout the state, what we've seen in recent years is a really significant increase in issues that are related to mobile home park closures and threatened closures. And the impacts of those are really severe on some of our most vulnerable community members. So unfortunately, the crises that we're seeing play out, referenced by some other folks in their comments, in Petaluma and Windsor and Santa Rosa, Cott and Lake County, at jurisdictions up and down the state, it shows what can happen when regulations are not well suited to kind of the makeup of this current mobile home park industry, which doesn't look the same as it did 20 years ago. We see private equity companies and corporate entities use this threat of closure and bad faith closure applications to pressure residents into these steep rent increases and ultimately to try and affect mass displacement from parks. And they're successful in doing this when an ordinance isn't crafted in a strong way to prevent this. So I'd really urge you to add the recommended additional finding and certification requirement for any closure application that is submitted without a proposed new use for a park, to say that there has to be evidence and documentation provided that really show that closure without a proposed new use is necessary for financial reasons beyond the park owner's control. I won't go into kind of the specific language in there because I know you have it in writing, but I think that's really important to make sure that that's as strong as possible to take away this like bad faith closure tactic that we see being used locally and all over the state. And then in real time, if I have a few more seconds, I would just like to cover kind of this question about the exemptions from providing relocation assistance. I think the language that's in there that does require park owners to open up their books, show profit and loss statements, et cetera, to demonstrate financial hardship, it's still really loose. I think we see in a lot of other jurisdictions specific language that references bankruptcy and findings around bankruptcy being used as the standard. I think that undue financial hardship is very loose language that honestly could open up a lot of potential for litigation against the jurisdiction if it tried to actually enforce that down the road. The other thing I do want to mention, HCD's memo to the County of Alameda, which I know was provided to council in your packet, specifically calls out the way in which the Housing Crisis Act does apply in the case of a redevelopment of a park. So just wanted to highlight that memo again for your reference. And then on this point of disaster, respectfully, this is something that has already been accounted for in the way the ordinance is drafted, that carve out for the removal of the obligation to pay the in-place market value of homes under SB 610. That is state law, that is there, but to kind of create this other exemption for disasters not linked to a declared state of emergency under SB 610, but kind of a ambiguous, more localized emergency opens up a world in which we could argue that, there was a small fire in a home in the park, it needs to close, there's a flood, it needs to close, right? And we that then are outside of this entire framework or the obligation to provide relocation assistance at all. I would let state law govern in this area and if there is a legitimate reason to close and an inability to actually provide relocation assistance, that exemption language that you already have in there about undue financial hardship or bankruptcy would cover you. Sorry for going over. Thank you.
Thank you.
Through the mayor, is there any way possibly we could be in a normal temperature versus a refrigerator?
I know.
We have a lot of seniors, me included.
We'll see if we can accommodate that. Okay.
All right. So, wow, it looks like we might need another study session. You know, council, staff, all this talk of government code and statutes, I want to take a minute to tell you about the beautiful senior park that we live in, Pueblo Serena. We have a wonderful resident manager and a management company that treats us fairly. We have no quarrel with Pueblo Serena or HCA, founded by Hal C. Aguirre, a mom and pop operator who built those parks. As Mr. Moser was saying, that company is represented tonight by Mr. Dean Moser, who we haven't seen since he gave public testimony at the 2015 hearing for the rent control ordinance. So it's wonderful to see him. Retirement seems to suit him. He looks so well. Anyway, we do have a trending problem with the investor class now offering big money for the chance to squeeze the last nickel out of these communities. Even though the owners say they won't close, it never said they weren't going to sell because, I mean, big dollars are being offered, shopped around because mobile home parks are just seen as great investments. But let me get back to living in a mobile home park. You know, it's a unique lifestyle. It takes time to understand what it means to own your home but rent the land. People who move in, they don't get it. We don't, you know, we move in, this is great, and it really takes time to get an education. And that's why you see people, you know, or people who start to look into the laws, you know, homeowners who become more involved because we see that this unique lifestyle has, when you own your home but rent the land. And so interested buyers are now trying to exploit this arrangement. Pueblo Serena is an over 55 community that allows people to age in place and support each other through the realities of getting older. On my cul-de-sac alone, we have a Vietnam War medic awarded for his service with PTSD, who has found peace and friendship here. We have another neighbor had to send her husband of 60 years to Oregon for care and now travels back and forth, handling everything on her own. But when she's home, she has community here. My own husband recovered from cancer and is now cancer-free. We have a resident just today coming home from hospice, and a bunch of neighbors have been walking the dog and helping get the home ready for this man's last days with his family. 2 women have lost their long-term partners in just the last couple of months. This is real life, and here we're able to face it with dignity, with connection, and with a sense of peace and security. So that's what's happening in our serene Pueblo, and what's at stake in Sonoma's, all of Senior's mobile home parks. So I just wanted to say before I close that we'd really love for you to come by and visit us. You're always welcome. We have a pancake breakfast every Monday morning at 9:30, and we invite you to come and join us. We have pancakes, eggs, organic fruit salad, and other goodies sometimes. And, you know, please come see us. We'd love to have notice so we can invite more people to come and meet our local electeds. But please do come. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Thank you very much for all of your comments and being respectful. I appreciate that. And at this point in time, seeing no movement to the podium, I'm going to close the public section and bring it back to the dais for discussion, further questions, and hopefully some direction to staff. How many ounces is that water container?
This is a half a gallon. This is a goal. Obviously, I'm nowhere near.
Okay. Okay, so questions or comments right now from...
How do you sleep at night? I would never sleep at night. Excuse me. Sorry, that's off the subject. So I was just going to make a general statement, because I realize I think that probably we're going to end up needing another study session. But, so I'm going to really try to focus on the intent, what I would like to see our intent to be, and a few key points. But I mean, I think that first of all, I would like to say a few words to the mobile home park owners. I appreciate what you do and the business that you do, and that you are providing affordable housing to our society and our community. And it is very much respected, and certainly, the goals that you have of not selling are wonderful. I think, unfortunately, what this is being framed in is in the current industry and the practices that are happening, where corporations and private equity are taking over mobile home parks. And so the ordinance is really written in the way to protect against what could potentially happen in the future. And ideally, you would never be in a position where you would have to deal with this ordinance. The goal is you would never have to be, and I recognize that we probably need some more discussion around the emergency, what really means that there's an emergency has happened or a disaster has happened. So, because we live in a capitalist country. I came out of the investment world, so I recognize that it is important that people have land ownership and that they have rights in regards to land ownership. So, but there is that, we're really seeing that change in the industry, and we've been very strong in Sonoma, and it's just time for us to really kind of up what we're doing. I think the work we've done so far has been great. I do believe that if we were to see larger entities, whether it's private equity or corporations come in, they have the capacity, they have big legal teams where they can go in and they can, look for the loopholes. So I am really intent on that we are closing loopholes. And I think most of the loopholes really just go back to, state law and just making sure that those are apparent. I do think that that's important, because I do think that this ordinance is a document for the mobile home owners to be able to utilize, and that as much of that information that is there for them, so that they do know their rights and really know that they're, so that we're bringing some of that state law language, not all of it, but some of that into the ordinance. We're making sure that we're referring to those. So I think also that I concur with the fact is that there is enough in the ordinance that if there is enough to protect the mobile home owners in case they were in, dire financial situations. I would like to see that be bankruptcy. That would be my goal. That would be bankruptcy. That's when they can no longer run the business. I mean, the reality too is the mobile home business is a stable, sustainable source of income for mobile home owners. And the reason why corporations and industries are looking at taking over mobile homes is because of that, and that they have performed better over the years in real estate than many other forms of real estate. So it is a business that is providing good income to the mobile home park owners. So when I look at a closure, I really think of, the community, what would we do with, that's like almost 8% of our population that lives in the mobile home parks. And certainly wouldn't be all of them would close at the same time. But even 2% of a population, say one were to close, that's a significant, not only to the community, the mobile home community, but to the city. That's a significant loss of business, business revenue, tax revenue, property tax revenue. All of that is, significant to us. And we don't, have the resources to take care of that large number of a community that would be displaced. And so we have to do everything we can to really prevent there being any, that closure and conversion is not the answer that we want to see happen. We want these communities to thrive and be healthy and continue to provide the sustainable income to mobile home park owners that it does today. I'm just making sure I'm getting all my notes. I think the other side of it that I recognize, I'm very concerned about the current environment that we're in, and especially when we're looking at healthcare issues, Medicare, Medicaid, other resources that we've been getting from the federal government that are being cut. And when I've gone into the mobile home communities and met people there, what you see is the community really provides a great service to us as the city, and the services they provide to their neighbors and friends in that community. And I think it would be they also help support, by doing those services, local nonprofits that also are trying to provide that support too. So the communities themselves almost act like a community of, neighbors being a nonprofit to support each other and help them with transportation on all the different things. So they're really gems in our, in our city. They're, we have great neighborhoods, but it is different. It is different in the mobile home parks. So it's really important for me too, that we have the protections around the potential scams to increase rents. And so really the idea that we want to make sure that the language is very clear in regards to that if there was a closure and conversion process at the same time, we understand what the plans are for that property. That's really important, so that nobody is surprised and all of a sudden it's like, no, we're not going to, or they close it and then the property lays vacant and people have been displaced, or they come back and raise rents, because they, say they now have the capability of doing it because they've avoided the due process. And then the last, and as I brought up, as you understand, from the comparable housing and the mobile home park, I will just say this, it's different when the language is a little bit, we're just asking for a little more language to be in there, not a lot more language. But on the comparables, I would really like to see that language added in. And I know that it's there underlying, but I think it's very helpful for people that live there, and I think it could be seen as a loophole. And then, and so I think that is the last that I have to say, but I'd also just want to, of course, thank everybody for all the work they've done on this. I do think we may end up needing another session, but because I would like to go into detail on many, many, many of these things, but I realize other people have other things that they would like to say.
Thank you. Jack.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, everyone. Yeah, this is a very complicated situation. Yeah, we try our best, and our goal is protect our residents from the displacement. Why we still allow our wonderful park owner, they can enjoy the property right, because this is capitalism. We choose this system. We have to accept whatever is good or bad. In North Korea, no this kind of issue happen. But here we have to, I believe we have the wisdom, we have experience, we have community power. Get it together, get it done. And park owner today, and I mentioned, and you never thought about want to close it, do something else. That is the very good, the promise to our all community. I so much appreciate it, because sometimes not only really happen, it's kind of the expectation, the worry, concern. And if you concern something, and from morning to the night, and you are got sick. So that is give our community is a peace of the mind, and feel like kindness. I so much appreciate. And as to these kind of laws, it's very complicated. My idea is we should be compliant, because we do have AB 2782 5 years ago, or very recently. We need to exactly follow, and also AB 6 and 10 also we need to follow. I'm not sure our Sonoma County has this in the mobile home ordinance or not, or because geographically the Sonoma County, we are in the Sonoma County, maybe a lot of the terms and the words and conditions we can apply to our and the city's ordinance. Another thing is, the most thing I worried about that is because so many details. For example, at the beginning I mentioned about financial hardship, how to make the subsidize, how to make life easier. I look at the detail, and owner and the park owner provide 36 months financial assistance support. From the owner side, it's very generous. Yeah, this is good. But from the resident, from the home owner side, that is terrible. That is so-called one-time lump sum money, and allow them to become homeless. Because I know some of the residents in Whistler Park, the major income from the Social Security. And also not very high, $2,000 each month. Paid $1,000 for the rent, and the rest of them, there is $1,000 buy the food, and the day-to-day, and the utility. But every time when these kind of living costs increased, Social Security also every year they increased based on the COLA. But this kind of increase never catch up our the price we purchase, we shopping in the Lucky, in the Safeway. So that is the reality. So I have the suggestion. So when we prepare this kind of ordinance, just like an agreement, 3 parties agreement, park owner and house owner and then the city. And we should find more common grounds to avoid any controversy. If there any controversy, and we can look at state law and county and other cities in this area. And also for this kind of the ordinance, I want to suggest maybe we can set up the 2 tiers, and the standard. First, it's very objective. A certain day, or for example, 60 days is the deadline. And the second layer is kind of the little bit subjective, and some exemption, some consider some hardship, and we have some favorable policy. So in this way, and we can meet in a different situation, and our residents, and we feel more comfortable. Again, I really hope our community join us. Actually, they already joined us. They push everybody involved. That is the best way. If we understand each other, and if we understand what's going on, and the transparency, give us the more confidence and the more comfort to do everything to meet the difficulties. That is my points. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I was under the impression we were going to try to help staff go back and fine-tune this ordinance. And rather than pontificate up here, I would like to ask staff, how can we help you tonight?
So after you, if you want to continue making statements or if you have any questions, but if there's certain things that you want to touch on and have discussion around, that's basically how I'm treating the comments so far, are points for discussion for the group. And so if there's other continued points to bring up, then we can have a group discussion around those questions or points that are being made. That way then I have that direction to go look at the San Jose or Sonoma County, those types of things, and then I'll come back and we'll do the study session around what specifically I'm looking for and what additional information you are requesting.
Okay, and Mr. Mayor, I do apologize. I probably should have made that comment through the chair. But as such, you mentioned the San Jose policy, and I made a note of that. And we may have already looked at that, but maybe we haven't. But I do think it would be worthwhile to take a look at that and see if there's anything we can glean. So we talked about the intent, and I think you mentioned that. And I think that's very important as well. You know, we all know the importance of housing, the fact that it's affordable, that it's here. I do have a little different philosophy, I guess, is I'm relatively pro-business, and mobile home park owners are in the business of providing housing, and I think there's a wonderful relationship that takes place here with Mr. Moser. Somebody said these are profitable investments, and I'm not sure Mr. Moser would agree with that. He indicated 1.2% profit in last year. From an investment standpoint, that certainly strikes me as not a good investment. But having said that, you know, there's a lot more at play here than just finances. And unfortunately, mobile home park owners have gotten into a business that that may not be as profitable, but they certainly are sitting on assets that could be profitable for somebody else. And I understand that that's the fear, and that's where we now start looking at loopholes and the protections that we can find to ensure fairness for everybody. And that's my intent. It's not to favor one side over the other, but you know, how do we make it fair and people can go home at night and sleep knowing that, you know, they're going to have a home tomorrow. So what is that going to take? You know, we've heard all sides of this ordinance, and I think we're making progress. I do think another study session will definitely be in order, but again, I do want to keep moving this forward. And I have several things here that came up from residents that certainly sound interesting, and I'm going to have to go back and study this even further to really clarify in my mind those specific questions. And I'm not kicking the can down the road at all, but you know, there's a lot of good information that's been shared tonight, and we need to digest that. And I don't think there is no timeline urgency associated with completing this effort, is there? So we want to do it right and in the best interest of everyone involved. My comment, sir.
Thank you. My colleagues have expressed a number of things that I've been kicking around in my own mind for the last week, thinking about how we can truly create what I would call a win-win-win. I know that's very optimistic, but it's recognized that there's a tremendous richness in this community that the parks provide, that the residents of the parks provide to Sonoma. And that certainly is something that drew me to Sonoma way back in 1985, the diversity and the mix, and I love that. I'm not a fan of kicking the can down the road. However, sometimes the can does need to be kicked down the road, and this may indeed be a time where we do need to continue to do a little further refining and review. I support John's, forgive the casualness, I support John's recommendation that we look up and provide the San Jose ordinance and see if its application is, if there's some points there that are worth evaluating from the other perspective, and I think that's would be worthy. I also believe there was noted about a case in Alameda that may again be worth reviewing. In a very selfish way, I'd love to create something where we lessen our chances of lawsuits or litigation. And unfortunately, we live in California, and I think that that's a condition that we all fear. To that end, I also believe that we need to take some further look, some further definition of disaster. And I think in reality, I'd like to think that one could identify a threshold of dollar impact, economic impact, that would tip it into something that has indeed a real impact to an owner. And whether that is sanctioned or approved by the governor or the president, who knows? But the reality is that something could happen. And I would like at least to put forth some effort to see if we can't broaden the term disaster that I would say would be more equitable in terms of if something happens out of someone's control. Beyond that, I would like to get some feedback from our legal attorney about a lot of effort's been put forth, at least been discussed, about the effort of closing loopholes. I would love to hear his perspective on how effective we've been in this last iteration of this ordinance, this draft on closing the loopholes. I know that we've heard a number of people express concerns that loopholes remain. So I'd love a little bit of feedback on that. As I keep searching for additional comment, does anybody else want to share at this time?
Yeah, I mean, I actually think that this ordinance is almost there. I mean, I believe that I don't think that the loopholes or the issues around them are that big, and I think that there's a few loopholes, and we resolved one clearly, so I think we have maybe four or five loopholes left. I personally don't want staff to think that they need to go look at an ordinance and rewrite what we have already. I don't want that to be the direction that we're taking with this. Do we all agree on that?
And also right now,
Can we get an?
Yeah.
Let's stay on this point.
Yeah,
right now.
Yes, I would say that certainly would not be the intent, at least my intent of wanting to take a look at the San Jose ordinance. But what I do believe there's value in it, if that ordinance does shed a light from a different perspective that may want us to revisit something in our ordinance, not a rewrite. No, I agree. We've got something that's headed in a good direction. But again, I think that we need to do our due diligence. And if there's something that we have not considered that may be applicable to our unique situation, I think we should at least have that opportunity. Yes, comment.
What I can do is basically do what I did with the matrix in the December meeting, where I did the outline of all the other ordinances we looked at, and I could just do compared to what we are proposing, and against San Jose and then Sonoma County.
That sounds an effective way to present it, so I would support that. Is that assuage your fear?
I think it's like around the specific,
The changes that we've made in the proposal.
yeah, and not beyond that. And you know, I think it's important for us to be looking at, for me, it's about, and I love that people recognize, you know, speak to us as a council as if we're going to have power around these decisions forever, but we won't, and there will be different councils here, and there will be different mobile park homeowners. No matter how wonderful they are right now, at some point in the future, it may continue to be the same family, but you never know. You never know. I used to work with families and family wealth, so things can change very, you know, drastically in a very short period of time. So I'm always looking at that for the ordinance, that it is not about just today. It's about how do we build an ordinance that really does work long time and is sustainable.
That is right.
I also, along those lines, I think that it would be valuable, and I'm going to use the term emergency exemption. You might even call it local emergency exemption. I think it does make sense to provide some relief in an emergency, and of course you need to define that somewhat, and I think we could for these specific properties. But I think we do want to include something along those lines.
Yes, every single effort right now we made and should be, you know, pay off for the future, because I already look at if everything not with a lot of flexibility, not a cover or some loophole in the future, we will have the legal challenges. And in order to avoid this kind of legal challenge or minimize this kind of legal challenges, you know, we should do more homework. And also, it's easier for our in the future, our city council member carry out this very solid ordinance. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, this is David. Did you want me to comment on the closing of loopholes?
I would welcome it.
Can you guys see me just for my edification
We
on the
can
screen?
now.
Okay. I'm not always entirely sure what is meant by closing loopholes. I think I have heard comments saying that there is a common tactic where park owners will claim they're going to close the park if the tenants don't agree to an increased rent. That situation shouldn't occur in Sonoma because we have a rent stabilization ordinance that limits the park owner's ability to raise rents. So that loophole, if it ever existed, doesn't exist in Sonoma. The other one that I've heard talked about is a supposed loophole for a park owner that has sounds like a covert plan to change the use of the mobile home park, but they are going to not disclose that plan and instead just close the park with no purported plan to do anything in the future, and then at some later date, 5 years later, then decide to change the use and then apply for a new development permits. To the extent that's a loophole, it's a loophole that's in state law. I don't think that it's legally defensible to compel a park owner to have a completed plans for a new project ready in order to apply for a closure. There are many legitimate business reasons why a park owner may want to close without having a plan for a future use. So I would not recommend that we require a park owner to have a planned future use in order to close. What I think we could do, to the extent it's helpful, would be to require that the park owner disclose or declare under penalty of perjury that they don't have a plan at this point for a future use if they're not coming forward with that permit. If they do have a plan, it's often in their best interest to come forward with and seek that permit simultaneously because of the ability to leverage in the impact report the possibility of future units there to offset the relocation assistance that they would otherwise have to be paying. So there are economic incentives if they actually do have a plan for a future use to have that brought forward at the time that the closure comes. So that is a change we could make. We could require them. I think that was something that the tenants suggested. I don't know if we would go as far as everything that Mr. Constantine had suggested, but maybe a declaration would work that would potentially close that loophole. And other than that, I'm not. If there's any other specific loopholes that you're aware of that you heard about tonight, I can try to address those.
While we may be thinking about those other loopholes, I'd like very briefly, if you feel comfortable, commenting on the two unanswered questions at this point about the potential of elder abuse and/or conflict of interest on the city's part. Would you be able to render any comment on that?
I am not an elder law attorney, but I do believe there are specific elements that were required to constitute elder abuse, and it would seem to me be highly likely that a closure application could constitute such abuse. It's a legitimate business proposition, a permit that's being requested. As for conflict of interests, the revenue that a city or a county generates from the land use entitlement that exists on their property, that those revenues aren't revenues that go to any particular public official. Those are revenues that go to the governmental entity itself. So there is no conflict of interest because no individual public official has a personal financial interest in the general revenues that are generated by property tax revenues.
Great, thank you. While David's on the line, anybody have any other questions specifically for Mr. Ruderman?
Yeah, so the one on section, I guess I'll start 982.015B. It's page 3. It's the top of page 3. I'm sorry. That's 9.82.015A. At the top of that where it says request to add enclosure includes all types of closure by government code. And then you don't have to write everything about the government code, but adds that language. And closure includes all types of closures. Why would that not be a loophole that could be closed? And then in regard to, so the first one you said, you have to remind me again, sorry. I didn't follow the first argument you made about the first loophole. So that, you answer this one first and then we'll go to the second one.
So the one about the definition of closure?
Yeah.
So if this is in response to the Tri-Park Committee's letters, I was actually a little bit confused about what they were going for here. In our ordinance, we define closure as a specific thing, which is essentially when a park owner doesn't fill vacancies such that only 75% of the spaces are occupied. And so it's kind of a de facto closure, like they're doing it kind of behind closed doors. And so our ordinance, and this is the existing language, this was the existing language that we have in there now, provides that if that happens, that you have to come and get a closure approval, because you've de facto closed you're closing your park, and so you need to go through this process. So there's nothing in the state law that says anything about closure. We could certainly, I don't think it would harm the language to include a provision that says, and as closure is otherwise defined from time to time, in the future in the government code section. I don't think that would be a problem. But I just didn't really understand what they were getting at there.
I think that would address that, because if there could be changes in state law, and that you would want that to still continue to cover that as those changes in state law would happen. And so then the first loophole that you talked about, just your argument for that one, do you remember?
The loophole about the bringing a application for a new development at the same time as the closure?
Well, there's that one, but that one we're going to have a long discussion about.
Oh, the first one was the they say that oftentimes the park owners will say, agree to this outrageous rent increase, otherwise I'm going to apply to close the park because I won't be able to afford it.
And so you actually think that the language that we have would protect that potential sham that could happen?
Yes, we have our rent stabilization ordinance that governs.
And because of the rent, and is there a way, would it help? I'm wondering, does it help by having the rent stabilization ordinance mentioned or referred to in this? Does that make a difference?
I don't think so. It's the chapter that just prior to this one in the municipal code.
Okay, so I'm gonna look into that, because I think that this is a loophole that is of the biggest concern. This one, and also the concurrent. I
do think this is a real issue, and I think it's something that some out of state hedge fund park owners have done, but they do it in there's a lot of small rural counties, Lake County, where they don't have rent control in their mobile home parks. And so they can easily manipulate folks by doing this. And I'm sure Legal Aid has seen that in places like Mendocino. Lake County.
I think it may be happening in the county here now, and we can come back and bring an example of how that is happening, and it's without when they don't have a rent control ordinance, or just, how they've been able to get around that. I mean, because it's a matter of these future, the direction the industry, and this is not just happening here, it's happening in California, it's happening all over the country. I mean, this is why people are starting cooperatives to have mobile home parks on what Rock USA is doing. There's organizations that are coming to work on this so that they can ensure that people that are in mobile home parks can maintain their home and their livelihood. So I think, to me, the loopholes, if the loopholes provide further insurance, and they're not loopholes that really harm the mobile home park owner in regards to their business capabilities, I think, I think they're loopholes that we should basically make sure that we're closing up. But in regards to the planning, I recognize, it's hard for me to imagine someone's going to close something without a plan of what they're going to do. It just doesn't make sense to me. You don't own a business and decide you're going to close a business without a plan, unless that business is no longer profitable and you're either going to go into bankruptcy or you're going to have to shut down part of the business or something. Doesn't make sense to me that you wouldn't have a plan. So I think, that those two, and I realize there's issues of how that planning and permitting process works with the timing of the closure process and all of that, but it just doesn't make sense to me that so if you can protect people, because what it allows the mobile park homeowners is to understand what that plan is in relationship to negotiations around what they may need to do in regards to actually what kind of support that they may need to get from the mobile park homeowners in regards to relocation or market values of the homes. So I think I think it's an important thing. That it's just transparency to me. But that's. I won't go on. We won't have the legal argument here.
Okay.
I think we're going to need. I'll hone mine. You hone yours. hopefully you won't hone yours as well as I hone mine.
I mean, the idea here is that yeah, maybe there's a plan, but the plan that the property owner has may not be a plan that requires a development permit from the city at the time.
Right.
It may be to let, maybe the plan is to hold the property vacant
Yep.
and potentially increase its marketability that way.
Yeah, but if we
That's
knew,
also-
right, and if we knew that, then we may not approve the closure.
Well, if they can afford to pay for all the relocation benefits.
I guess that's my question, because right now, what we're trying to do is we're trying to codify and make very clear that should there be a closure, that there is a fair series of steps and compensation that will take place. And to me, the goal should be then focused on what is the fair steps and assurances that should something happen, that there will be a level of protection and reimbursement and assistance, et cetera, et cetera. Whether the park owner has a plan or not doesn't change the protection, does it? I don't see that.
Well, why don't we look at what we have to agree to for the findings?
Right, it's
In
the findings that are
regards-
gonna,
okay, it's the
that's what you would
findings-
have to be focused
The
on.
findings that are important, and there would be, if there's no plan and they close it and it stays vacant for 5 years, I think that there's findings that we can't meet.
Let's go to the findings.
And I think with the, can we replace that affordable housing? And I think that that's one of the issues that we're dealing with is the issue of we are in Sonoma and where can relocation happen? Oh, let's go to the findings. Can you, okay. Oh, it's in this one. Sorry, I have 50 million pieces of paper here.
David, walk us through it, please, the finding
The
aspects.
findings, sure. The first one is that the relocation impact report is complete,
Okay.
basically.
So whether or not there's a plan or not, that's not impacted, is it?
Right, no.
Okay.
Whether there will exist at the time of the conversion available mobile home lots within Sonoma County to accommodate the displaced mobile homes. So it's just whether they're going to exist or not. It's not like they have to exist. That options are available to adequately mitigate the impact on residents who would be displaced by the conversion. So this is where the relocation assistance is going to be important.
Because then they would be paying for that.
Mm-hmm. Then the next is the relocation plan provides for reasonable cost of relocation based on the findings in the relocation impact report.
Okay.
Then the proposed conversion is to another residential. Oh, if the proposed conversion is to another residential use, so this one wouldn't apply because we wouldn't have that. But this one says if the proposed conversion was to another residential use, whether the residents of the mobile home park will have the right of first refusal to purchase, if for sale or rent, the new units, and whether the construction schedule will result in an unreasonably long displacements. So that one wouldn't apply if there was no.
Right, if they're not going to do anything.
Yeah. And then the proposed conversion will not be detrimental to the public health, safety, and general welfare. And then the last one is the new one, excuse me, about whether the overall housing availability within the local jurisdiction is going to be materially impacted.
Which that is a finding that probably would be a finding that would be really hard for us to make.
Well, this finding, the state only requires us to find whether, taking into consideration both the impact report and the overall housing availability within Sonoma, the conversion will result in or materially contribute to a shortage of housing opportunities and choices for low or moderate income households. So it's just, will it impact it or won't it impact it? It's not saying if it impacts it, we won't allow it.
I understand the finding. We just have to make that finding that it's going to impact it. We don't have to.
And it probably will impact
But
it,
at the
especially if
bottom,
there's
it does
nothing.
say that we have to mitigate the findings if there are findings, correct?
Right.
Yeah, so
right.
that would have to be mitigated. And that would be a hard finding to mitigate.
So
That,
that's
in my
the
opinion.
relocation plan part and the relocation assistance. That's where you're mitigating.
Yeah.
So with all the information, that's where that relocation plan is being developed in order to mitigate those impacts on displaced residents. And then what was asked at the last meeting was that we just provide a menu of options, and these were our options, and then was asked to also provide the lower income and a disabled household additional options.
So we can either go on with the whole idea of the plan or no plan, or we can think that, it's up to you as the chair as to where we take this from now.
Well,
Because I have
again,
other concerns.
I don't want to cut short any conversation up here at the dais. It's important that we do give the direction to staff for this. If I was to take a straw vote right now, I'm guessing that the majority of us would suggest that we have a third study session. Would that be a fair statement?
Yeah.
Okay, so in the very least, we're going to start by giving you the request that there'll be a third study session. No, probably what's needed now is a little bit more specificity as far as what else we would like to see done between now and the third session. And we've given some. How much more would you like?
Well, all of it. So if you as so this was one of the items that came up, and the recommendation, an idea that came up from the city attorney was the affidavit component. So the question that's on the table for you is for when we bring back, based on the four of you all today, is do you want more than just an example of the affidavit, or are you wanting more conversation? And if you do want more conversation around this topic, what kind of information are you looking for, or questions that you're trying to answer around this? Because I'm not hearing this being a concern of all.
Right.
And so does the affidavit component satisfy a need for, in regards to a potential loophole in there not being a planning project that's being proposed, a development project?
Did I hear correctly that under perjury, the request would be made that the applicant would have to identify under, I guess the term was perjury, that there is no plan, and based upon that, David, you were thinking that gives us what benefit, or at least the assurances that, tell me more.
It would probably, I would hope that it would help assure the tenants and the mobile home owners that the park owner does not have a contemporaneous plan that they're keeping secret when they're applying for the closure.
Okay.
An affidavit is essentially a statement under penalty of perjury.
Okay.
So on this one, this is what I think would be good, is to look at other instances where things have happened where there's not, where this, what are the downsides to this not happening concurrently in regards to the benefits? What are the benefits, and really looking at what are the benefits to the mobile home park owners to having this information, and how does that inform them in regards, or support them in regards to next steps? Because I realize we're talking now a closure. We're not talking about it, but we have to decide whether or not there's going to be that closure. So I'm really want to make sure that in that, if I was in that instance, I would be thinking, like, what are all my options? Is there any way that I can be looking at a finding, if I was a mobile home owner, that is a reason why not knowing what is gonna, what's gonna happen next really puts me at a disadvantage. So, I want to go and look into that. So, but if staff wants to look into that too as well, as I think it's good, because we want to look at both sides. What is the true disadvantage to that, to the mobile home owners, and at the same time, how are we protecting the mobile home park owners' rights?
Got that?
I got that.
So we can have the discussion. I mean, we can do that work on our own too.
Okay.
next item that I have is, so the ones that I have so far on the next meeting are changes made in the matrix, so against the Sonoma County and San Jose. Some discussion around the emergency exemption. The ones that I presented to you tonight in regard to the comparable mobile home park.
Yes.
What more discussion or information do you want around that, or do you want to have that conversation tonight?
Well, and the other thing that I actually want to see, you know, around a good number of them is the language that says that wherever we're referring to state law, and maybe we don't have to say it, but I think it's good to say it, that we're going by state law, and to any updates to that state law, so that is automatically our ordinance becomes updated as state law is updated. So that every time the state law is updated, we don't have to come back and have another discussion about the ordinance.
There are certain things that we may regardless have to come back for, and the city attorney and I have talked about having an overall clause in the ordinance that we could do instead of each instance doing that, but rather an overall statement of that aspect of this specific.
Yeah.
The
So
Like in the
mobile
definitions
home,
sections.
yes, in the mobile home residential law. Because
Right.
all those things get changed and all those things apply to this. And so it could be a general overall comment in there.
Are you good with that?
Yeah, I mean,
Okay.
I think an overall statement is that would be very helpful. All right. Okay, I think that's it. Let me do one quick look. Does anybody else have any other things they want to make sure that we address?
So we want to continue the conversation on actual like definition of comparable parks. So remember I brought up the Enviro screen and disadvantaged community conversation in that. That's my one question. Do you want to continue that conversation to another study session, or do you want to conclude that conversation tonight?
Well, you were in your presentation, you said that your recommendation is to there to be no change from the existing definition.
But it's a policy decision.
I understand that, but you have a perspective on why you make that recommendation. What is the pros and cons of that, please?
So the con would be that objectivity that was mentioned, in that sense of likeness. So we are a very unique community, and so that is going to potentially limit more. If we were to do that, I do agree with what the recommended ordinance was to include another county, because we're only so many communities here in Sonoma as a whole. And when we think about where mobile home parks are, traditionally, right, they're part of our older sections of town or along freeways and things like that. And so when you start looking at, that's why I wanted to show that Santa Rosa example of where these are located. They're right, like, for the majority along the 12 or along the 101. And, as we look down our county, Roanoke Park, Cotati, Petaluma, all along the 101. And so and they're within our denser areas, our older community sections. Yeah. So that's why I'm saying when we start looking at the sheer number, we're really limiting where those potential relocation parks are.
And would you be comfortable if we were to expand to Napa that we could put that language in?
You'd run into the same thing in the sense that developments in specific locations, but that's where I'm just putting that out there is when we start limiting options, then we're weighing an environmental factor on top of amenities like services and things like that were already in our definition. So it's another layer.
Jennifer, do you mind if I just ask for a clarification? Correct me if I'm wrong. I think at a policy level, the way I'm thinking about it is maybe oversimplifying, but because of the likeness is going to be so hard to achieve in a closure, that like the policy issue is, do you want to expand the scope of where they could relocate?
Right.
Or do you want to keep it within the county, which would require inevitably somebody to move to an area on the map that's orange and not green? So it's like at a values level, which is the preference of the council from that perspective?
So I would suggest we not resolve that tonight and look into that issue.
And how would you like to look into that issue more?
Well, I would like to hear more from the community, from the mobile home owners, what, you know, how they would weigh those two issues. Like understanding, because we recognize too, land prices are high. We recognize the overall problem that we're in, and how do we actually address it within the economic environment that we're in? How do we resolve that? So I think it's, to me, I don't want to make that choice tonight for the mobile home owners. I would prefer to hear kind of like, in this world, which would you prefer? What makes more sense to you, makes you more comfortable with what's going on? One of the things, I guess, for me that is really hard is one of the things that ensures health for senior citizens is socialization. And one of the ways that they get socialization is being in the community that they're in. And moving to a new community just, that breaks up that socialization that exists within that community. And when that happens, it affects people's health and longevity significantly. So these are the factors that I want to take into consideration as we're thinking about, once there's a closure, okay, there's a closure, but then we're relocating, we're displacing people. And what does that mean? And how do we make that I think if it was all of us sitting here, and it probably won't be all of us sitting here, hopefully it will be people that feel the same way, that you want to make that as, that has the least impact on people's quality of life as possible. Even though it's going to be, we recognize it would be impactful. All right.
Are we currently using this Cal EnviroScreen?
No.
Okay, and so the existing language is changed. There's
Correct.
no
Currently,
reference.
the proposed language, there was no change. It would just continue as Sonoma County.
What is the limitation of expanding the geographic zone? I'm not sure. It isn't eliminating the opportunities that exist in Sonoma County. We're just saying that we should include Napa County, which to me equates into more choices, which may suit different people differently or better. I mean, so I don't understand why we would not want to include Napa County.
I'm not saying that we wouldn't. I was saying that we definitely would if we're using the Cal EnviroScreen.
Okay, so we'll continue that. And okay, please continue if you have any more specific.
So that way, if there's anything, I just need, if there's anything for me specifically, but we'll just continue that conversation. It sounds like it was more of more feedback from the mobile home owners themselves around that. Let's see. I did hear in one of the comments in regards to the outright removal of the exemption for relocation assistance. And just go back to what we had, which was just the bankruptcy section.
That is my major concern for our residents. Based on financial assistance program right now, and on the paper, that is I already mentioned, that is a one-time deal, lump sum of money give to you, and then in the future, you no longer have the ownership for this mobile home. If you move to other place and the rent increased by 30% and 40%, because residents right now, why they choose here, just they exactly just like kind of balance what the income and expenses, keep a very basic lifestyle, almost no any disposable the income. So now, I know that I already say that the owner already provided this kind of assistance, and we appreciate the generosity, but we want to look at if any other option for these low income with a disability, only income from Social Security and the benefits. That is my major concern. See if other in the city, other area, if any creative way or another option. I already figure out, definitely there are several other people, if like this situation, they will have this kind of difficulties. They were losing their house. They were. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So, and I think the question also that you're trying to answer is whether it's the bankruptcy or is there if it's not bankruptcy, what is the financial indicator that the mobile home park owner is having to close because of financial difficulty?
So
That's the clarification that you're asking for.
It's bankruptcy's already there. That's already there as an exemption from this process overall.
Mm-hmm.
What we were asked to do in the last meeting was to, and this was provided as an example from another community, is that at times that cost may be such. It's not that they can't do it at all because they're going bankrupt, but maybe they don't have the ability to pay for that whole relocation plan for all that assistance that's needed. And so what we were asked to do was provide an exemption that's not necessarily a full exemption for providing all the relocation assistance. It could be a portion of that. And then what's that basis? And so that's what was provided in the draft ordinance. When you were speaking just a second ago, when we first started the discussion section, you had mentioned concern around and recommended removing of an exception to provide assistance. And so that's why I'm bringing it back and making sure if we want to continue that conversation of, removing it again, we put it in if we want to remove it, what kind of information are you wanting to help you make that decision on that specific item?
Okay, send me to where you are because I got a little lost there.
Sure.
To be honest.
Exemption
What
section
page?
is right after the findings.
Okay. It's in near the back, right?
It is.
Page 14.
Thank you.
Okay, there we go.
So
All right.
exemption from relocation assistance obligation. So
There it is, yep.
So that section,
An unreasonable financial, so that's what is not economically feasible and would eliminate substantially all reasonable use of economic value.
so it could be a total or partial exemption request. So they, after receiving, all the information about what's in that relocation assistance plan and figuring out their financials, this was added to say, I can't meet those full obligations. And to be able to support that, that's what we're asking for additional documentation
Right.
and an additional finding.
And if I can just
And that's under
chime in
C,
here.
all those additional, what they would need to provide, yeah.
If I can just chime in, this is a provision that was actually in the proposal that the Tri-Park Committee provided, and it's a good provision to have, because without this possibility of getting an exemption or a partial exemption, I do think we would subject the city to a potential takings claim by the park owners by not allowing them to exit the market other than by declaring bankruptcy,
Okay,
which is essentially what we'd be doing.
yeah, I think I'm comfortable with this.
I also think that this section speaks to their concern about natural disasters or fires that aren't
Yeah.
a declared state emergency that cause the closure of a park. I wonder if we can use this section to also address some of those concerns if it doesn't already.
Yeah, and then if this is here, then we could define the other as a state or national, national.
Right, and currently it is. Currently it's defined as
Yeah.
a state or national.
Okay. All right, I'm good. Sorry about that
That's
rabbit
good.
hole.
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Mayor, can I
Yes.
just ask for a clarification?
Absolutely.
From the body on that piece?
Sure.
That, I think what we're hearing, but just want to confirm that keeping in that language that allows for a partial exemption is
Correct.
direction from the body.
Not
Yes.
just from me.
Yes.
Thank you.
Straw voted for.
Going back to my notes. Okay, we talked about removing, we talked about emergency disaster, we've talked about future plans. The other is you started, Councilmember Farrar-Rivas, talking about comparable housing.
Yep.
And definition. Were you specifically talking to what you talked about earlier about the safe and sanitary words?
Yes.
That's what I've noted. I just wanted to clarify. Okay. And I think,
That's a reasonable request.
okay. We're gonna look at other ones, look at state law.
Yeah, the decent, safe, and sanitary language doesn't concern me. That's in the Uniform Housing Code, which is what we incorporate, so we can repeat that language.
And is it possible in the notices to residents for that to be in Spanish and English as well?
That's a policy decision. We do not currently put any notices in Spanish. It is not our regulation to do such, so it is a policy.
You mean it would be a broader policy versus just in this ordinance?
It could
She
be
would
both.
need 3 of you to tell her to do that.
Oh, thank you.
And
English, that was
I
good.
mean, we can have conversation around having the broader conversation around the entire city. There are cities that are required to do that because of a population consideration. If a certain percentage of their population of a certain ethnicity that speaks a certain language. So in LA, it's very common to have multiple languages go out.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, San Francisco too. And so that is there's law regulations and then there's policy decisions. We do not have a law telling us we have to, but there's a policy discussion that could be had for the whole city, or we can just have it for this specific ordinance. And so on this specific ordinance, I need a straw vote and we can write something.
Let's have some discussion.
I would support this specific ordinance because here we were tonight with translation taking place because
Yeah.
some of the residents are Spanish speaking. So I would support it in this, and then we can come back and visit the larger policy at some time.
English is not my first language. I support.
That was really good.
Okay, we got that straw vote.
All right.
I'm sorry, I'm just looking for something I thought that we took out. I just want to make sure that it was done. Do you guys have other things you want while I'm looking through my notes?
So
I'm gonna start over again.
Commissioner Gurney, I heard a comment and I have some items, but we're going to have another study session. Are any of those items things that you need more information on for that future study session conversation that you are looking to staff or the city attorney to provide information to you?
You'll have to.
Oh, subdivision.
You didn't say specific. That's literally what you said. I have some items that I want to
oh,
think
yes,
about
yes.
more. And so those items that you want to think about more, do you need anything from me?
No, I
Okay.
think I
Just wanna
have
think.
everything, and I will certainly have another agenda packet that will be numerous pages that will be fulfilling my
Okay.
curiosity.
Great.
Oh, I get what you meant by policy versus direction. It's a little late. my head's
I
filled
did
with.
look. I did look at the time,
My-
and
my
that's
head-
why I'm
my-
not
yeah,
asking
right.
for you
Okay.
guys to make a decision. I'm just
And this will-
making sure that I get everybody's input on things for the next meeting.
Yes, and will be my last one, and I'm just suffering from allergies, so my head is going.
It's bad.
Let's try to breathe here. Did we add in the issue around the language around subdivisions?
So we made
did.
that edit in
we
there
did.
in the applicability.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure. Okay,
So that subdivision, though, if we're considering not,
subdivision map, right?
but if we're giving consideration, not insisting that the applicant at the time of the application identify its use, where would the subdivision map come into play if that decision isn't going to be made initially?
It's in, so like other parts of our code, it's if these things are happening, or if this is a request based on a subdivision for resident ownership, that's the sentence that we wrote in there.
Okay.
That that we're not going through this process for a closure because we're going through a subdivision process to have resident owners.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. Got it. Anything else?
But if they're coming forward with a project that will require a subdivision, then they'll have to do that as well, basically.
Yeah. Okay. That's
They'll
kinda-
have to do both.
Yeah. That's if they were coming forward.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Understood.
Mr. Mayor, I have one other point of clarification just for staff follow-up.
Please.
This is maybe one of the beginning ones where we were talking about future use and disclosure of that at the time of the application for a potential closure. Just want to make sure I'm clear on what you're asking us to evaluate and follow up on, which I think is some analysis of pros and cons of requiring disclosure. We're trying to tie the application process for closure or conversion to, essentially compelling them to disclose a future use. Is that what you're asking us to evaluate?
Yes, so we can have that discussion. I feel like if we talk about it now, we're having it in a lapse of knowledge.
Yeah. Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, and to that, I just want to know what again, I'll put it differently, pros and cons. What are we gaining from that? What is the benefit to the homeowners if the decision is going to be they're applying for closure? That's really what I want to know.
And what is the benefit? What is the con to the
exactly.
homeowners?
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's where our mobile homeowners come into play in their assistance in that.
Yeah.
And likewise, my park owners.
Yeah, so we can have a real discussion about it.
I just want to make I think that we're only going to be able to gain from another session. And the reality is that homeowners, you have an opportunity to continue to express your concerns as they happen. We are still of the mindset that we haven't made any decision. So this extended study session can only be good. I mean, it's going to be good. It's going to be good also for possibly the landlords. So again, I know that our comments have not been greeted with everybody saying Yahoo and yay, but that doesn't mean that. I appreciate that. So anyway,
I think it's yeehaw and yay.
Thank you. So my last request: do you have anything else, anybody here, about what more we are asking for the next go round? That's not something we can comment on because that's not where we're at. So I would like to then ask the question, do you have enough? Because if so, then I think we're going to move on.
Yep.
Okay, we're moving on.
Which one?
We're going to go very quickly. I'm going to get there. I'm getting there. So we have, we did not have 10 people come forward, which means that we have nobody else that wishes to make comment on items not appearing on the agenda. So it is with great pleasure I close this.